It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. We're off and running. We got a whole show planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, wake up, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, we're going to get into the Robert F. Kennedy Tulsi Gabbard update. It looks like they're flying through, and DJT is going to have the cabinet he wants. What do you think of that? Is this good? Would you like to see some changes? Are there some problems in there? We'd love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971. Are Democrats falling into a trap trying to defend all this federal aid, especially USAID? Well, some very high-level Democrat operatives, people like David Axelrod, think so. We'll cover that as well. The Department of Education may be going away. Is this good? I absolutely think so. Or is this a big problem for America? We're going to get into that in the 7 o'clock hour. Trump and Netanyahu. Trump wanting to rebuild Gaza. Oh, boy. I don't like it when we go on these little foreign expeditions to rebuild things. Not a huge fan, but...
Do you think he understands what he just announced, too? We'll get to that later. But...
Yeah. I think he knows what he's doing, but but I'm like,
that's an interesting statement to take publicly. Then that's really, really kind of spooky.
Oh my goodness, yeah. No, this one's going to be an interesting debate. We'll get into that 8 o'clock hour. Jennifer Walker is going to join us, Wound Care Associates of Colorado, in the 9 o'clock hour, as well as Leeland Conway. He's the Rocky Mountain District Manager for Delta Defense. They're organizing a big rally against these anti-gun bills down at the state capitol this weekend. You're not going to want to miss those details. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson,
news and comment.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Hey,
28.
Blake, our little conversation yesterday about Jason Crow has amassed more than 20,000 views on X.
I know. That was pretty cool.
Well, we are crushing it.
You're informative and entertaining. You bring it all. Hey,
and for those that missed it yesterday, it was Jeff making the accurate association between Jason Crow and AOC, basically saying that Jason Crow is becoming Colorado's AOC. Well done, sir. Well done.
Thank you. That was great. Hey, I gotta ask you guys something. Am I missing this, or am I out of my mind? Isn't this like our 1 year anniversary this week?
Yes, that is exactly right.
You are right, sir. Yes,
man, we have been doing this crazy stuff for a year.
I know.
We've been doing it for
flown
a year.
By.
I'm surprised it worked.
Same. Part of the reason we probably haven't been celebrating it is we're kind of like newlyweds a year into this, still wondering if it was the right decision.
Yeah, especially when someone else gets to choose whether or not you get divorced. Like, don't remind them.
That's right, but keep the crock pot.
Yes, exactly. Always keep the crock pot.
No doubt. 28 and clear in Denver. Man, it's our anniversary. I'm so excited. Expecting a high of 63. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, Denver police giving more details about a deadly weekend shooting outside 7-Eleven. Investigators say two groups were involved in an altercation at the store near Colorado and 35th Avenue Sunday. The suspect allegedly killed two people and then shot an officer who responded after hearing gunshots. A search found the suspect, 19-year-old Fabian Vasquez, hiding in a backyard shed. He reportedly used a ghost gun with an extended magazine during the shooting. Vasquez faces multiple charges and could face more if the DA's office determines the shooting a homicide. Police have arrested a suspect wanted for a November shooting in Aurora. Officers served an arrest warrant for 18-year-old Javarius McLean on Monday in Arapahoe County. Investigators believe McLean shot and wounded 2 men on November 29th. Charges against McLean are pending. The first group of criminal illegals deported from the U.S. and flown to Guantanamo Bay are waking up this morning behind bars at the naval base in Cuba. DJT's proposal to take over the Gaza Strip is getting some negative reactions around the world. Saudi Arabia, Russia, and China all coming out against an American occupation of the Palestinian territory. A senior official with Hamas called it ridiculous and absurd.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100.
Hey, you know what? He's a builder, a businessman, has a vision, aim high, and hey, no matter what, maybe somewhere in the middle is where they land. I guess it's better than what we have right now. We will see. Everyone will keep a close eye on that in the days to come, but just constant everything. Just we're being bombarded with news every minute of every day, which is awesome. More nonsense
Blake,
from
on that point, though.
Yes.
Interesting tweet I retweeted about how the fact that Trump and Vance are moving so quickly has thrown off the Democrat deep state command and control system.
Absolutely.
Because he does a great job of breaking down how the New York Times controls what he calls this kind of blob of progressive media out there. And so they can't respond fast enough to get control of the messaging because it comes so quickly that Trump's able to address his agenda. And you literally have like Democrat lawmakers stumbling around outside USAID. And that's the response that we've gotten so far.
Right.
There's no coordinated. And there's even a protest today. I think I'm going to go down. And it's an anti-Trump mass deportation protest outside the Capitol today. But it's like anytime between noon and 8 p.m., just show up and we'll organize this protest. I mean, they're so caught off guard because they don't. You're overwhelmed with the amount of changes that are coming.
No doubt. And you know how the news cycle pre-Trump used to be like 24 hours? I'm noticing it's about 6 or 8 hours right now.
Right.
I mean, you cannot keep up with it, and by design, and congratulations to them. I think it's day 16, and the sledgehammer keeps on.
And Vance
pounded.
says this is the new normal. Expect this rapid fire breakneck pace to continue for 4 years.
Yeah, and as we know, the first two are the most vital because of midterms and everything. They got to get all this done, within the first 100 days, and then get ready for the midterms in 2 years. So more nonsense from American-hating Ilhan Omar on USAID on Tuesday.
What is really important for the American people to understand is that this money really amounts to less than 1% of what our budget is as a country. It is money that goes to the most vulnerable around the world. It is already appropriated, and it can't be reappropriated.
Their economics are fictitious. Soon we'll have to eat our dishes.
So you hate America? You hate you dump on America, and then we're supposed to be okay with billions of dollars going to...
No, I don't think so. A new bill in the Senate would cap credit card interest rates at 10%, introduced Tuesday by Bernie Sanders and Missouri Republican Josh Hawley. The cap would be in effect for 5 years if it becomes law. Police are on the hunt for a shooter who killed one person and injured at least 5 others at a warehouse in Ohio. The shooting happened a little before 10:30 last night at the KDC1 Cosmetics warehouse near Columbus. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Pelicans and the Nuggets tonight at 7 o'clock. Canucks shut out the Avalanche last night 3-0. And some Dallas Mavericks season ticket holders claim they've been offered refunds following the trade of Luka Doncic. Many fans are devastated by the Mavs' decision to send Doncic to the Lakers, mostly in exchange for Anthony Davis. It's 25 in Parker, 24 in Broomfield, 28 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
Sam, he talk too much. That's it. Yes, that's it. Yes, I'm saying. ये भी देखे यही मेरी बात की तारीफ है. Yes.
That was real. It sounds like comedy, but it was real. It actually happened yesterday. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Colder air from the north occasionally coming in and Pacific air pushing it out continues today. The Pacific pushes out the cooler air. Temperatures all the way into the mid-60s today. Gusty and strong southwest winds, especially foothill. Lows tonight, lower 30s. A bit cooler but mild. 50s on Thursday and sunny. Sunny Friday. Temperatures go back up into the 60s. However, temperatures start to trend downward this weekend, and the downward trend continues into next week. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, top Trump nominees advance as Senate confirms. The Attorney General, U.S. President Donald Trump's cabinet nominees have gained momentum as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard cleared a key hurdle in the Senate, and Pam Bondi was confirmed the full Senate vote to approve Bondi as the next U.S. Attorney General tasked with running the U.S. Department of Justice. Kennedy picked to be the next U.S. Health Secretary was advanced by the Senate Finance Committee in a 14-13 vote that split along party lines. Only Republicans voted in favor of him. Gabbard, chosen to serve as Director of National Intelligence, survived a narrow 9-8 vote for the Senate Intelligence Committee, also split along party lines. Looks like DJT is going to get the cabinet he wants. Bill, your thoughts on that?
Okay, fine. Again, you want to put Sonic the Hedgehog in as Transportation Secretary? Go right ahead.
That would be amazing.
You won the election. You have the votes. Fine. But don't pretend that we're doing this based on merit hires. I mean, DJT is all like, hey, no more DEI, no more this, and then merit-based hires. I understand that these people fulfill the qualifications MAGA wants, and that's perfectly acceptable. But don't pretend they're qualified to do the job. And what I mean by that is if we strip the names off of the resumes and we put the resumes in a pool of 100, almost none of them are going to percolate up to the top. The big names. There are some other ones that might make it into the top 100. None of them are going to make it in the top 100. None of them are going to make it in the top 10. There's no way RFK Jr. makes it in top 10 for his position. There's no way Hegseth makes it. There's no way Tulsi Gabbard makes it. There's no way No makes it. But that's okay. You won the election. You have the votes. Go right ahead. Do whatever you want. But don't pretend about what you're getting. I mean, the health administrators from Samoa came out after RFK's testimony and said he lied to the Senate. He lied about what he did here. He lied about what he said here. He lied about why he came here. And he lied about being anti-vax. He came there and was anti-vax. He came there and encouraged families not to get vaccinated. He wrote a 4-page letter to the leader of American Samoa. That's what he was involved in. Yes, a couple of months later, the outbreak happened. But no kids got more vaccinated or got the vaccine because he was there. People deferred and avoided the vaccine, which does increase the outbreak. Yes, he is responsible for the outbreak and death of people, including kids. Yeah, that's fine. You want him in charge because he's going to do something, food ingredients, go right ahead. But understand those companies that he's going to be they're going to be going after as far as the food ingredients, the additives, have really, really well-paid lobbyists that pay a lot of money to get those people in Congress reelected. So good luck. If he does it, great. If he takes this stuff out. But he's got some very dangerous views. And the same thing with some of the other ones. But again, go right ahead. So, if that's what you want, fine.
Tulsi Gabbard confirmation was hung up primarily around Edward Snowden. Do you consider Edward Snowden a traitor?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
because of what he did and where he put that information. And here's the problem I have with that position that Tulsi has taken is, what do you do with, we have the kid that was a government contractor, had some security clearance, took plans and posted them on a video game site. What do you do with him? I mean, okay, yeah, we can prosecute him and stuff, but you can't call him a traitor anymore. You can't say that anybody that takes any government secret classified information and then publishes it for the world is any sort of a traitor. It may have broken a law or two, maybe, but that's the problem of the bromide that she's setting up that I've got. So, okay, if that's how we're going with this one, okay, fine.
So
it's 4 years. I'll write it out.
Anybody who tries to blow the whistle on maybe illegal spying that's taking place within the government, you would categorize as a traitor.
Mouse game we've been playing
no,
with
not anybody who's trying to blow the whistle. I'm talking about information that you have and then how and where you publish it. That to me is somewhat of that's an issue. Sitting there and blowing the whistle is a little bit different. This is about taking information that you don't necessarily or should be able to release publicly. I don't agree with that one, even if it helps one of my altruistic goals. That is difficult for me because I'm not always convinced that the ends justify the means. I'm not convinced of that. That's why we always have that college, philosophy argument about, if you were given a time machine, would you go back and kill baby Hitler? Yes, you're a baby killer, but you know what you're trying to prevent in the future. So that's that question. I know where my values land. And even if they're leaking something that I think should be leaked, that's difficult for me because of the process and procedures they broke in order to get that. That's hard. It's hard for me personally.
So as you can imagine, I see the cabinet picks differently. I think what you saw in this election, the mandate that came through from the American people, is that our federal government is very sick, that it is fraudulent, it is bloated, it is probably driven by special interests out there that have powerful lobbyists that get what they want at the expense of what's best for the American people. So what the American people would like to see in the leadership of these institutions is not somebody who rose through the ranks, did everything right, followed the corporate path to become the Secretary of Defense, for instance.
Yeah.
They want somebody that is an outsider. That's primary objective are twofold. One, to fulfill the orders of President Trump. They don't want to see what happened in the first term, where you get somebody in there that's like, well, I know better than President Trump. Okay. somebody that's going to fulfill his policy plans. Number two, there's going to be a disruptor that is going to press at the edges where, things that might violate corporate standards, for instance. That this isn't the way we do things around here, Tulsi Gabbard or Robert F. Kennedy. They specifically want somebody that's going to push back on that. And then three is a good communicator. Prior to this show, I think Chris DeGaulle got it exactly right. Trump's picking people that can fight the philosophical policy battles in the public square and can do so well where ideas and beliefs are debated, that type of thing. So you see that with Robert F. Kennedy, you see it with Pam Bondi, you see it with Tulsi Gabbard. Pretty much everybody that's come through. Chris Wright is a great example of that.
I only agree at that 50%. Yeah, I agree that Donald Trump is putting people in the positions that are good on television and good communicators.
Yeah.
The idea that they're good fighting back and pushing back, no, not at all. I disagree. There are people that are. RFK Jr. is an awful example. We go to the questions that he had during the Senate. I know that everybody that's MAGA thinks he did a wonderful job, but part of the things that happened during there is he was challenged on how Medicare and Medicaid works. I had no idea. But no one cared about that as far as how it functionally works. There are times in which he was asked about vaccinations and other illnesses, and he's like, oh, well, if you show me the science, then I will take it into consideration. Dude, you're asking to run the organization. If you want to be in charge, telling people, I don't have enough information, you need to give me the information, you're in charge. You should know that already. I'm not putting you in charge of this organization if you don't understand how it works functionally or where the science is behind it. That is phenomenally stupid. That is like having someone put him in the head of NASA and him going, maybe the moon landing was fake, but if you show me the facts, maybe I'll come around and figure out that it was actually real. No, you don't get to run the space program if you don't think that we actually go to space. It doesn't work that way. That you don't put that person in charge. Again, put whoever you want in charge, but don't pretend on who you're getting. That's fine. Go right ahead. And I know that disruptor is the #1 job qualification, followed by outsider. Great. Go right ahead. But be very honest about the fact that you're putting people in these positions that don't necessarily have the ability or knowledge that is necessary in order to run those positions. It could work out fantastically. Great. That's wonderful, and I hope it does.
Yeah.
But it also can go completely and totally sideways.
It sounds like to me that what you believe, like somebody that's best to run these is just going to continue to run things the way they are.
No, not at all. I think you can find disruptors inside the system that are upset. We hear from it all the time. People are upset about how the system is run.
Yeah.
But the issue is understanding how the system runs. And this is an inelegant analogy, but I think it shines a light into some of what I am thinking in some of my position. Peter Boyles often talks, and has talked for years, about the fact that in his career, long story career, much longer than mine, and much longer than yours, in his
Mine's
career.
Only a year old.
Well, no, but you had time. You had time beforehand. You actually spent time behind the microphone doing other stuff with Centennial Institute, and that's important in this analogy. It's very important, and that's part of why when they came to me, they came to you first, and then after you said, I guess I can try it, then they came to me. And one of the reasons I'm like, I think this can work is because of your experience and stuff you've done with the Centennial Institute. And Pete oftentimes says there are two people in his life that sat down and got it, that understood how to do radio. And that's Dave Logan and Mike Rosen. Those are the two that turned on the microphone. Everybody else, myself included, yourself included, had to learn. We had to learn how to do this. We have an example, as much as I like him personally as a person, but he failed on the air. We have an example right here. Our former afternoon guy, not Stephen, but Brandon Tatum. Tatum was not a radio guy. He didn't get it. He didn't understand the medium, and his show flopped because of that. He needed to learn. Just picking somebody up and because they're an outsider and disruptor and placing them in that position doesn't always achieve the goals you want. It can. That's why I'm not saying that any of these nominees are going to be failures. I'm just saying I have a real large dose of skepticism because of the experience I have in my previous life. I haven't met a lot of teachers that can walk into that classroom and be good teachers day one. I don't know a lot of people. I don't know anybody, outside of the two examples that Pete gives, that have done radio. well from day one. I don't know anybody that's stepped onto a soccer field and been able to coach or play well from day one. I don't know any of those things. So do I say that these can't? No. It is highly unlikely in my experience. So just because they're an outsider and disruptor, I don't think necessarily is going to get you to the goals that you want. But if the goal is just disruption, you're going to get it. It could be good, bad, and different, but you're going to get it.
I almost think that's the biggest goal.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that one. Yes.
And delivering on Donald Trump's agenda. So you have folks that it's not going to be like the first term where he went after who's Rex Tillerson. I remember everyone was so excited. Rex Tillerson. All these. Well, was he Secretary of State? No. But anyways, I remember people being very excited about Rex Tillerson because he had all these years of experience.
Yeah, he was energy, wasn't he?
Then he gets in and is like, well, I know better than Donald Trump because I'm an expert. And then you had this infighting within the cabinet and all this stuff. You're not going to see that. We're driving this agenda forward. The Trump administration at this point seems united, focused. You have disruptors. I think his cabinet's great. I don't agree with everything. Robert F. Kennedy, for instance, on abortion has been terrible. On gun rights, terrible, right? I think he called the NRA a terrorist organization at one point. But what he's hired to do is to implement the president's will and to challenge. We are challenge these the food industry because we are more injected, sicker, more overweight, more depressed, more suicidal, more dependent on welfare than at any point in American history. We're actually the lifespan starting to go down in this country. Those are all problems I want directly confronted. And Robert F. Kennedy, I think, has a career of taking on these types of special interests. I want to see what he does over the next 4 years.
Yeah,
I want to see what he does.
I'm curious too, but the whole idea of waiting and seeing what he does, it doesn't necessarily mean that that we're going to expect. I understand your optimism, and I expect some very negative outcomes, and we'll see. And oddly enough, when you're talking about the things with people getting less healthy and more obese and everything else, it's concentrated in certain demographic groups, and strangely enough, also concentrated in certain socioeconomic groups,
right? More
on the lower end than the higher end.
Dude, if you're having to eat Mickey D's every day,
and
that's all you can afford.
Yeah, and that's the key there. The delineator in many cases seems to be money, not access. Money seems to be the delineator. And Robert F. Kennedy isn't going to do anything in order to raise wages, living conditions, or the wealth gap here inside of America. If I submit that if people on the lower economic spectrum got a leg up, they could make better choices with food. They could go to the doctor more often. They could be involved in more things like getting their kids into soccer teams or football teams or basketball teams, because that requires time and transportation as well as registration fees. And if you're having to work 2 and 3 jobs in order to put food on the table, you don't have time to get your kids into some of those extracurriculars. And that's some of the issue that we have. Some of these kids don't have the opportunity necessarily to run around on a football field for an hour every day, an hour and a half. We don't have that. So some of that opportunity is predicated based on wealth and based on your socioeconomic status. But I don't see us trying to address that. That's a much harder thing to do. But I hope that if RFK can do some of the things with food additives and some of the ultra-processed foods, that is fantastic. And I'll be more than happy to give him all the credit. Isn't it funny, though,
how the conservatives have changed on that?
Oh, completely, totally.
So,
yes. You remember what happened with Michelle Obama when she said that we had to have healthier school food, healthier school lunches, and it was as if she was the devil. I remember people calling, going, why is she telling me what my kids can eat at school? And now those same people are calling and going, do you see what my kids are eating at school? I remember what you said during the Obama administration. I remember. I took those phone calls. This is crazy.
And then, slamming the nanny state with the big drink bans and all that stuff.
But now we're saying
red dyes.
Yes,
and stuff like that.
But now that's the issue. Is too many of those big gulps that are filled with the sugary food. And then the idea that we're feeding them the fast food all the time, and we're feeding them the chips all the time, and we're feeding them the high processed food that is awful for you. Yes.
So
it's so weird.
I'm sympathetic to
I
it
appreciate that you guys are on board now.
I hit 40 in my entire body chain. It's like
Dude.
God just gave me a different body.
Oh,
And
that is awful. And no one tells you. And okay, here's the reason why.
So I can't eat anything like that. I used to eat a Domino's pizza with pepperoni and jalapenos like on a nightly basis. If I had that one time a week now, I'd blow up.
Oh, it's awful. And here's the thing is, and again, we have to keep this secret between you and I and our listeners. That's the secret that everybody over 40 doesn't tell anybody in their 30s. No, because you don't. Wait, don't do that. Do not share that with them. Let them enjoy the pain and suffering that all of us went through when we realized, damn it, I can't eat this anymore.
It's totally different.
It is.
So
it's
it's been interesting to watch my friends get a lot more serious about healthy eating. I think that's because they've gotten older. But conservatives have changed on this and have gotten a lot more serious. And people are even texting in, no, it's the crappy ingredients they put in our food. But 3207, 10 years ago, conservatives were not talking about this issue.
No, not at all. And I'm great that we're finally at the table so we can get something done. And again, if RFK Jr. does it, great. But I'm worried about some of his other things and some of his other ideas and what he gives space to. And again, the idea that when he's telling some of the senators that are questioning him, well, if you show me the science, then maybe I can. No. You're asking to run this organization. You need to know that science before you are put in charge. It's like running someone at the FAA going, I think that maybe we could keep airplanes in the air with just a lot of wishes. If everybody on the plane just wished hard enough, I'm sure it'll work out just fine. No.
I see it differently because what I see RFK doing is raising the right skepticism into every aspect of HHS that deserves to be there. And the perfect example of this was COVID, right? And the COVID shots and how much changed. And if you just got this, you weren't going to spread COVID. Now you need to get the booster. Now Anthony Fauci's been boosted 6 times. He still gets COVID. All that. And then the moralizing that takes place around HHS decisions, that if somehow you challenge it, you disagree with it, you're terrible, you're going to kill people. People are dying all around you because you didn't get the jab. All that stuff that took place deserves to be challenged. And I want an HHS secretary that's not just going to push, the special interest funded type of information forward and then moralize and blame and shame anybody that challenges it. But I want to hear.
Go ahead. Yeah, you want to hear. What's interesting is when you talk about the COVID information and stuff like that, when RFK was talking about some of the research that he was concerned on vaccines and things like that, he cited a guy by the last name of Pollard. Pollard was one of the people that said the mRNA COVID vaccines were A-OK and fantastic, and he was a huge endorser. So all I'm saying is that in one sense, that RFK Jr. is sitting there saying what Pollard said, oh, that's the information I'm taking, that's what I believe, but he completely and totally ignored another branch where the same guy he said was telling the truth did something else that he didn't agree with, and he completely and totally had amnesia about that one. So he's not intellectually consistent based on his sources, nor based on his material. What he's doing is he's taking bits and pieces to fit his predetermined conclusions, and that worries me, because again, he's sitting there in front of the Senate and he cites studies by a man who said the COVID vaccine was solid, and RFK Jr. still didn't believe it, but he's using that man's same other research to prop up other things that he believes about problems with vaccinations. And the one I'm talking about is when he said that we shouldn't vaccinate black people as much because they have different immune systems. And that is a research that has been done by a guy by the last name of Pollard. And so he also then came forward and said that the COVID vaccines were completely and totally legit. But RFK Jr. hung his hat on the earlier studies about the difference between black and white people, and then ignored Pollard's later studies. He was picking and choosing. He was cherry picking. I mean, he's fair to do it, right, but the issue is again,
you had,
I get
it. I think you had a very corrupt HHS. I think it was driven by special interests. I think they buried science in order to drive their agenda. I want disruption there. Robert F. Kennedy's the right guy to do that. Let's go to the text messages here. Joan from Lakewood, congratulations to our wonderful and very talented United States Attorney General Pam Bondi, who gets sworn in today amid tremendous support and the respect of all. I know Pam well. It was an honor to appoint her. And my prediction is that she will go down as one of the best and most consequential attorney generals in history. I think she's I think she copied what Trump.
Yeah,
posted.
she did.
Okay.
Here's I have high hopes for Bondi. The only question I have is why we're not worried about previous 6 years of her employment was with one of the largest government lobbyists in America.
Mm-hmm.
If we're worried about lobbyists and influence, what you talked about right there is that corporate interests were subverting science. She was part of those groups doing the subversion for the past 6 years. And now she's put in charge as Attorney General. Nobody's been asking questions about that. I've been raising my hand since her nomination was announced that I've got questions about that. Nobody asked that in the confirmation hearings, partly because some of those senators want to go work for that same company afterwards. So they're not going to. But I'm just saying, again, not saying she's going to fail. That's my largest concern. If we're talking about disruptors, she was part of the machine that wanted to keep the status quo moving forward. Is she going to be the disruptor we all hope? Or is this going to be more of a dog and pony show? I'm just curious.
Holly K from Lakewood saying you can't say that if you pay people a higher wage, suddenly they'll become thin. They need the knowledge of what damage the food they're eating is doing, which is what RFK Jr. is an expert at. He's trying to get the poison out of our foods, and people are throwing a fit over that.
But they can't afford it. The reason that people eat the bad stuff is because it's more affordable. If you go in there and if you go and run through the chip aisle and grab chips, cookies, and soda, I can walk out of the store for 50% of what I would do grabbing the same through the produce and meat aisle. 50% getting the crap. And that's going to be the problem. There is a threshold. And if we pull the chemicals out, that's going to be good.
Don't we have these school lunches, though? Didn't Obama get that done?
No. I think some of it was fought back on because, Michelle, and we don't Michelle do anything good. So there's some stuff there. But the other part, and again, we can get into school lunches. There's a whole issue as far as school lunches that I dislike how they're done. And you and I would probably be marching lockstep in a lot of things based on school lunches. But if we pull these chemicals out, the food's going to get more expensive. Threshold money is going to be part of a threshold. The texture is right that giving everybody more money isn't going to magically fix it. But not having the money is a barrier to entry to eating better and getting the medical care that you need. That is a barrier to entry.
All right, join the conversation. Trump getting all of his picks. I got to tell you, for the cabinet, I got to tell you, I'm excited. I think that these are great picks to launch Donald Trump's agenda into these institutions. They're change makers. You're going to see differences made as a result of their leadership. Join the conversation. What do you think? 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Chris Wright getting approved as well. Our own Colorado energy guru.
Yeah,
I've going to be joining. That's going to be awesome.
I got high hopes for him, and there are a couple others that, again, I got really high hopes for some of these people. Let's hope it works out.
All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, Politico's got an interesting article out about the Democrats' strategy to defend foreign aid. After 3 months of soul-searching about how to revive their party, some Democrats this week believe they finally found a rallying point following Donald Trump's presidential victory. Billionaire Elon Musk's campaign to dismantle the federal bureaucracy piece by piece at Trump's behest, starting with the U.S. Agency for International Development, lit a fire under many Democrat lawmakers, several of whom rallied Monday outside USAID headquarters, but relaunching the resistance to defend one of the least popular corners of the federal budget could be a monster miscalculation. And some prominent Democrats have told Politico they have some serious strategic reservations about how their party is fighting back. David Axelrod says this: "My heart is with the people out on the street outside USAID, but my head tells me, man, Trump will be well satisfied to have this fight. When you talk about cuts, the first thing people say is cut foreign aid." Rahm Emanuel, the former House leader, Chicago mayor, diplomat, told Politico the same. You don't fight every fight. You don't swing at every pitch. And my view is, while I care about the USAID as a former ambassador, that's not the hill I'm going to die on. Interesting.
Yeah, this is interesting.
I mean, this is where they're trying to do these kind of anti-immigration protests too. But yesterday you saw this big effort outside USAID, or on Monday, I guess.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that. That was dumb.
Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
That was really sad. The thing is, I'm not certain that everything that Musk is doing with Doge is legal. They showed up at NOAA offices recently. Yeah, what could go wrong there? Yes. I'm not certain that it's necessarily legal. I think part of the problem is that Congress is in the hands of the Republicans. So they have a tendency to acquiesce, as any party does, to whoever's in charge in the White House if it's their own party. So getting Congress to do anything might be a little difficult, and the court system is slow. There's certain things I'm not worried. I'm not convinced that Musk and his team can do these, especially because if they become special government employees, they should have to go through a basic background check. They should have to go through some basic vetting. They also have some sunshine laws they have to follow. Certain meeting records have to be kept. Again, if they are a special employee, there are certain rules about things they have to keep. But according to what we heard recently in a midnight call from Elon Musk, he thinks we should just abolish all federal regulations. He thinks they just get in the way of everything. And I'm certain he thinks they do, because those are rules he has to follow when he's trying to build his spaceships and his cars. And those are difficult to always have to work around, because, why don't we just let stuff explode randomly and then figure it out afterwards? But he's not going to be in the car.
But as far as USAID, and that's where Democrats are going to organize their fight. Even some of the biggest names in Democrat strategy going, guys, time to pick a different battle.
I did see something yesterday that someone that had worked with USAID, specifically the HIV outreach, says that for every day that the USAID funding is held up and we don't keep it going, you're going to probably lose somewhere around 30 people to HIV. That just because they're not going to get the medications because it can't be delivered, and we're the ones delivering it right now. There wasn't an alternative source that was available at that time. So again, there are real world consequences for this. And and that's what we can decide. And if we decide to pull up our drawbridges, as Donald Trump is wanting to with USAID and other programs, then we will end up with more situations like we're mad about at the Panama Canal, where countries sign China's roads and bridges initiatives because that's where they're going to get the money from. That's where they're going to get the funding from. That's where they're going to get the support and the help. So we have to be careful whose arms we're pushing people into by taking care of our own. But
Democrats are falling for Trump and Musk's foreign aid trap, Politico says. What do you think? Join the conversation. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Coming up, you choose the news. the morning. You gotta get the what they want. You choose the news.
Yes, it is that portion of the morning where we get to make questionable decisions and waste valuable ad time. We call it America's favorite fake radio news game show. You choose the news. We scour the interwebs for moments every morning to find really dumb stories about us humans, give them even worse headlines to play this fake radio news game show. Why, you are asking yourselves? That's a good question. It's because nobody in charge wakes up for about another 8 minutes. So while we are left unsupervised, this is what happens. Okay. Gentlemen, Blake Olson in the newsroom, Jeff Hunt in the studio. Here are your choices this morning, sirs. Headline number 1, middle school boys to protest. Headline number 2, spreading the joy. Headline number 3, it's a new start. And headline number 4, I see your point. Mr. Hunt.
Well, in honor of the two middle school boys in my house, let's start there.
Middle school boys going to protest this one. Again, you are going to have to insert your own jokes during this entire reading. St. Paul, Minnesota is where we find ourselves this morning. A Minnesota senator is proposing to reverse a recent law that was put in effect just last year that banned the consumption of nuisance beavers in Minnesota. Yes, you can make all of your own jokes about beavers and eating and tasting, but I'm not going to do that. We are not going to lower the standards on this show to go that direction. Under state law in Minnesota, homeowners are allowed to trap or kill beavers that are causing damage to their property. However, you are not allowed to poison or kill the animals. You have to notify a conservation officer if you kill a beaver. Well, an intrepid young state senator, Mr. Stephen Green, a Republican, says he doesn't understand this. Well, why can't we eat them? So he wants to change the bill back and saying, yes, you can eat. I'm not going to say that out loud. I'd like to this morning, but we're not going to. He also says he doesn't understand why it's only the problematic beavers. Why can't we just eat all of the beavers? Yes, all of them, everywhere that we meet them. And again, there's so many jokes, and I'm not going to make any of them because I don't want to have to talk to the people in charge later today. I've had too many of those conversations recently. So we are going to protect my time later today. All right. Blake Olson, your choice, sir. And we need t-shirts. That's what we need t-shirts on that too. We need t-shirts. Support the, and we can't do this. Okay. Blake Olson, spreading the joy. It's a new start, or I see your point.
Spreading the joy.
Yes, spreading the joy. Here we find ourselves in Denver, famous Washington Park. Just this recently, Ryan Eggleston, a licensed CPA, found himself online, and he was out at the park spreading joy. He calls himself online a certified joy enthusiast and small business owner. He says he has a deep passion to preach and teach the word of God. So it was a shock when someone on Sunday sat down on a bench next to him, and he decided that person needed to be shot. Yes,
God,
he pulled out his gun
crazy.
and shot the
This
guy.
guy was like a CPA too?
Yes,
and all
he's a
that
CPA.
stuff?
Not just a CPA, a certified joy enthusiast. It's important. Obviously, he's spreading the joy. Now, he basically was involved in a verbal altercation with the first victim. Victim actually could sit at the same bench as the defendant. They got into a little bit of argument, and obviously that escalated into a shooting. And Ryan wasn't, satisfied with just spreading a little bit of the joy. He decided to shoot other people as well. Spreading the joy around. So I know it's well. All right, Jeff Hunt. It's a new start, or I see your point.
I see your point.
Yes, I see your point. We're traveling to Indianapolis for this one. Terry Sutherland is raising concerns about Indiana gun laws after he was allowed to get a license to carry concealed. Doesn't seem unreasonable until you find out that Terry's been blind for a while. Terry actually used his sightseeing stick when he went to the city-county building to get fingerprinted for the permit. Nobody asked him any questions. And he said, this seems odd. If a blind man can get a license to conceal carry a gun and you don't carry where I'm shooting, why can't I have a driver's license? Man has a point. Just saying. All right. Back to you. That's into you choosing
Man
it, sir.
has a point. Speaking of jokes, man, we can go there. All right. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill
This
Show.
is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. Donald Trump's your president. Let's kick it off. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, the Trump administration drafting an executive order to initiate Department of Education's elimination. Is this the moment America starts to get more smarter? Or is this a sign that we're going the wrong direction? Would love to hear from you. I'm thrilled. As somebody who worked in higher education for 8 years, the Department of Education was a useless piece of baloney that just created problems with its stupid regulations. And I am thrilled to see it out. It has not done much of anything to actually improve education for children in America. The disparities still exist. So I'm thrilled to see it heading out of here. But what do you think? Join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, thanks, Jeff and Billy. 34 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 63. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the first group of criminal illegals deported from the U.S. and flown to Guantanamo Bay are waking up this morning behind bars at the naval base in Cuba.
Let's kick it.
And arguments over pausing President Trump's order looking to end birthright citizenship will be heard in federal court this morning. The executive order last month was put on hold after almost half of all states sued to try to stop it. Today's arguments come from immigrant right advocacy groups and 5 pregnant illegal immigrant women. DJT says Palestinians have no alternative but to leave Gaza and find somewhere else to live. Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu met in the Oval Office Tuesday, where Trump said the U.S. is prepared to take over the occupied territory.
I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable. And I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world, will be there, and they'll live there. Palestinians also. Palestinians will live there. Many people will live there. But they've tried the other, and they've tried it for decades and decades and decades. It's not going to work. It didn't work. It will never work. And you have to learn from history. History has, just can't let it keep repeating itself.
And he did not rule out the possibility of sending in U.S. troops.
His club is called Mar-a-Lago. This could be called Maragaza.
Maragaza, I like it.
Maragaza
would work. Look at the palm trees. And that
is
it'd
nice.
Be a great golf course. No doubt, it's beautiful there.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're getting Billy and I are going to
layout.
get into this in the 8 o'clock hour. So definitely want people to join.
Yeah,
the
make sure you tune in for
conversation
that one.
as to
Yeah.
whether or not Maragaza is a good idea.
Maragaza. I love it. I think it'd be nice. He did not rule out the possibility, as I just said, of sending U.S. troops. The Army, so this is great news, says its recruiting records in December were the biggest numbers seen in that month in 15 years.
Fantastic.
That is awesome. Man, that is huge news. The Army announced Tuesday that almost 350 people signed up every day. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said America's youth, they want to serve under the bold and strong leadership of 47. Pocahontas, Dizzy Lizzie Warren, creating conspiracies concerning the crackdown on USAID.
Elon Musk wants the power to say that your grandpa, who frankly is a cranky old guy.
Why don't you just check yourself into the old fool's home while they still have a bed left?
And sometimes disses Elon on X, doesn't get his Social Security check on time. Elon Musk wants power to say to your mom's doctor, you're not doing it the way I would, so the doctor doesn't get paid.
What?
I have no idea. I mean,
they're so over the top.
There were five. Yes, there were like 5 people who. I listened to that whole thing. I'm like, I understood maybe 5% of what all of them were talking about, and still still didn't make it.
I mean, look, this is what we talk about when we talk about DC being full of swamp monsters. Like, you have these folks that can't imagine at all the idea that we would return tax dollars back to people, that we wouldn't just spend money on every possible special interest project that's ever been proposed.
Yes.
You know, the idea that we might have to cut somewhere is just so anathema to the way they think about it. The government is here to rescue you. It's the ghost of Jimmy Carter.
They may not be able to get their pensions, be eligible for their pensions. This is horrible.
And and look, I'm conservative enough to go Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, military spending absolutely should be on the table for reform and adjustments. But even Donald Trump has said those aren't on the table. So running out there and saying, you know, you're not going to get this check, or your grandpa's going to die alone and poor. None of that's on the table right now.
No doubt. They're relying on the useful idiots to stand there and cheer for these people who make hand over fist so much money from taxpayers. It's ridiculous. RFK Jr., Tulsi, cash is next.
They broke the law. They broke the chain of command. They broke every regulation there is in the FBI. They weaponized the system of justice against a political target they hated. We found those text messages, and we got them declassified finally in full when I became Deputy Director of National Intelligence.
Man, I'm ready to party this weekend if it happens. We'll see. Everyone awaiting that with the FBI director potentially. The NTSB has left Philadelphia less than a week after the medical jet crashed in a local neighborhood. 7 people, including a child, were killed when the jet went down in a ball of fire on Friday. At least 24 people were injured. The NFL is removing the end racism message, thankfully, that would have been in one of the end zones during the Super Bowl. This Sunday will be the first Super Bowl since 2020 without the message in one of the end zones. Instead, the NFL is replacing the message with the phrase, choose love. How's about nothing? How's about just put, the Eagles, the Eagles, and the Chiefs or the Chefs in the end zone? That's we don't need those little messages. How about maybe football is patriotic, or we love football, but no, you have to put that garbage on there. Miami Beach says it's not interested in being a spring break party destination. Good for them. City officials announced Monday there will be measures in place next month to keep things peaceful, including DUI and security checkpoints and curfews. The city also plans to use drones to monitor the crowds. Very interesting. Pelicans at the Nuggets tonight at 7. Canucks shut out the Avs 3-0. 32 in Lone Tree, 31 in Lakewood, 34 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
Sounds to me like we need to get some new conspiracy theories, because all the old ones turned out to be true.
Facts matter, Senator.
Yeah. I mean, conspiracy theorists are up something like 37-0.
Yeah, let's go. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The cat and mouse game we've been playing with colder air from the north occasionally coming in and Pacific air pushing it out continues. Today, the Pacific pushes out the cooler air. Temperatures all the way into the mid-60s today. Gusty and strong southwest winds, especially foothill. Lows tonight, lower 30s. A bit cooler but mild. 50s on Thursday and sunny. Sunny Friday. Temperatures go back up into the 60s. However, temperatures start to trend downward this weekend, and the downward trend continues into next week. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, the Trump administration, CNN's reporting, has begun drafting an executive order that would kick off the process of eliminating the Department of Education. The latest move by President Trump to swiftly carry out his campaign promises. Two sources familiar with the plans told CNN the move would come in two parts. The order would direct the Secretary of Education to create a plan to diminish the department through executive action. Trump would also push for Congress to pass legislation to end the department, as those working on the order acknowledge that shuttering the department would require Congress's involvement. The president said Tuesday he wants his Secretary of Education pick, Linda McMahon, to put herself out of a job. I told Linda, I hope you do a great job in putting yourself out of a job. I want her to put herself out of a job. Education Department, Trump said. McMahon, who served as the head of the SBA during Trump's first term, has yet to have a confirmation hearing for the top education post, while calls to abolish the Education Department or merge it with other federal agencies. Reagan tried to do, Bush tried to do. Now Trump seems to have the most energy to be able to do this, most political will to be able to achieve the ending of the Department of Education. But when I go back and I look at what we've spent, the outcomes, have we achieved anything? Early on, you did see some improvements in education that have taken place, but those have basically subsided and then tanked under the COVID lockdowns, and schools are still trying to respond to them. But one of the major initiatives of the Department of Education was to address disparity in education between rich and poor, black and white and Hispanic, and those really haven't improved at all. We've spent a lot of money. It's become essentially a tool for government regulation of education. You have disastrous student loan issues, especially financial college student loan issues, but then FAFSA has its own problems. Filling out all those forms, that's what most families go through when your kids head off to college. There are problems with that as well. So in my mind, hasn't delivered a lot. And as somebody who worked in education, it became a tool for advancing political ends through higher education. You have, I think, just one school out there that I know of, Hillsdale, that said, we're not going to play with federal funding. And when it comes to federal funding in education, it's not like the Department of Education writes a check to a university. That happens in some cases through grants and things like that. But most of the time, it's coming via the student through financial aid. And schools like Hillsdale have just said, we're not going to play, because when you end up with the government money, in any case, you end up with a lot of strings attached, a lot of challenges. Hillsdale's been able to build a very successful endowment to be able to withstand all these challenges. So in my mind, Department of Education, good riddance. Billy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not convinced they have the ability to eliminate it like they want to. Where does the funding go? Because some of these schools won't survive without the funding. What do you do with some civil rights, stuff and support? One of the things is I have a disabled student in my family. This will hurt him tremendously if you close down the Department of Education, because the states and the taxpayers aren't going to step in. He's more expensive to educate. They're not going to step in. That funding comes primarily from the feds. So the idea is, because we don't like what we think the schools are doing, we're going to harm the education of other students. I think that's deplorable. I think it's ridiculous because I'm not convinced, one, that Donald Trump, through executive fiat, can eliminate the Department of Education. That's a Congress thing. Now, Congress would have to do it. But the question is, where's the money go? I doubt they're just going to say, oh, well, we're just going to eliminate all the funding and we'll count it as savings. That funding is probably going to be rolled into other cabinet positions. So it'll still be there. The requirements will still be there. And the strings that you don't like will still be there. So I'm not convinced that just by eliminating where they have their offices that it's going to be better and more efficient, and putting it into other cabinet positions doesn't make it necessarily more efficient. It was put into this grouping primarily so that you'd have one people that are going to. They're going to determine it. But I want to explore a little bit the idea that our poor educational system is the result of the federal Department of Education. How do we come to that conclusion? How do we know that our failing school system, the fact that our kids aren't at grade level for reading, writing, and arithmetic, why is that the fault of the Department of Education? I haven't had anybody connect the dots for me. Maybe you can help me out. Maybe I'm not seeing it, but I haven't seen anybody yet connect the dots.
One of the challenges, you've spent a lot of money. We spent a lot of money with the Department of Education, and our kids aren't any smarter. Like, what do we spend the money with? What is it doing?
For things like for low performing schools that don't have the money, giving those schools that are in lower that have either low performance or are in, especially in the low performances, are tied into lack of funding. So they don't have a tax base. Taking away that money from the schools that have worse tax base isn't going to make those kids smarter. It's not going to make their classes better. Taking away some civil rights protections from the schools isn't going to make them smarter or better. And taking away the funding for the disabled kids like my kid. No one's
talking about taking away civil rights protections on kids. That's in the law. We're talking about the Department of Education. And we have gone from spending $2,000 per student per year federal funding to $14,000, and you have no difference in their performance in education.
But many of the enforcement and the idea of making sure that the civil rights laws are followed, the funding comes from the feds. So if we take that away, okay, but you're just not going to have that anymore. That's fine, but I don't see how that has made the kids dumber. That's what I can't figure out is, again, I understand the spending, but is it the Department of Education's responsibility to educate your child? Is that the role?
Well, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
And we're spending a ton of money to do it. And it's not working.
The answer is no. Never has been, never will be. That's not the role of the Department of Education. That's not what they do.
I think there's a lot of educators out there that would disagree. They think they own the kids.
Good. Go right ahead, please. And what I want you to do is call in and tell me what curricula the Department of Education mandates.
Well, they did Common Core. Remember that under Bush?
No, that was a push for it, but that has to be adopted on the state and local level.
It was tied to block granting.
Yeah.
So you didn't get the money unless you did embrace it.
Yeah, if
and
you
it
didn't
was
want
stupid.
to. But again, those decisions are made on a state and local level. The curricula is determined by the state and the individual school districts.
Right.
They have the ability.
But you have had these federal pushes with regards to curriculum that have been disastrous.
Yeah, but they didn't have to take the money, did they? Yeah, they didn't have to take the money.
Right.
Yeah, I know that. But here's the idea. This is where I'm going with this. Are you telling me that if they didn't take the money, those schools would have been better positioned to educate their kids? Because that's what you're asking for.
I think so.
Okay,
right.
That's fine.
Because if you embrace Common Core, I think your kids got dumber.
Okay, so if they have so the money's not necessarily needed then, so we can take all the money out. Okay, so
I would like that.
Okay, then how come schools that are underfunded in poorer areas tend to do worse with the kids? Is there any
underfunded? I don't think they're underfunded at all.
No?
I think they're we are spending more and more money in education and getting the exact same, if not worse, results.
And who makes the educational determinations for the child? The parents and the school district and the state.
I believe the parents do,
Yep,
which
and the
is
school
why
district and
I
the
don't
state.
understand why we're spending so much money on it.
But the parents and the school district,
right?
The Department of Education, hang on a sec.
Bill,
the Department of Education
said,
is way down the road on who has the direct impact on the educational opportunities of the kids.
Right.
And so we're mad about something the Department of Education doesn't necessarily control. This is the problem here. Eliminating the Department of Education isn't going to make your kids smarter.
But Bill, you just said that underfunded schools are not performing as well. And at the same time saying it's not the schools that are responsible for the education of the children.
No, I said it's the schools. I did. I said it. Parents,
It's the
schools,
parents.
and state. Yes. State, local. Yes, because it's local control. It's the school district. It's the schools. It's the state. None of that is Department of Education. You can eliminate the Department of Education today, and that still, those rankings still exist. It's not going to magically mean that all of our kids are going to be reading at grade level. And you can do it. That's great. But you understand that harms my kid. That takes away funding from the educational opportunities for my kid.
There's
it also
no
hurts
requirement
civil rights
that
and some other issues.
funding has to run through the Department of Education. It can be easily block granted to the states. And all the Department of Education has done recently, right, is target Christian schools, utilize their power of regulation to go after institutions. It hasn't actually improved the education of kids. How has the Department of Education improved the education of our children?
Because of the money they gave that helped students like my son.
But they don't. It doesn't have to come through the Department of Education. It can be block granted without Department of Education.
You just asked me how it helped.
Right.
I gave you a direct example.
The money from the federal government helped you, but the actual work of the Department of Education, like.
Okay, so the idea is this.
There's no curriculum produced.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. So what you're saying is we just need to erase the name, and somehow everything's going to get better.
I need to erase the regulations. And
but those regulations and spending would still exist because you just
can
said
have some block grants.
You just said they would roll into other areas. But hang on a second.
Can.
With the block grants, how have the block grants worked out? Do you think that the school systems have spent the money the right way?
I'm willing to give a little bit of flexibility on special education, but I think most of the funding that goes to education doesn't actually get to the kid. I think it goes to administrators. I think it goes to teachers unions.
Then how does
the last thing that gets funded from the federal government is the kid.
Then how does that change if all you're doing is moving the funding mechanism into another? Hang on. How does it change if you move the funding mechanism into another branch of the cabinet? How does that possibly change? How are you getting? This is what I'm asking is what I don't see is how this gets you to your goal. Everybody that is complaining about education, and I would love to hear from people, 303-696-1971. Explain to me what I'm not seeing here about how eliminating the Department of Education helps you reach the goal of getting our kids to the standards you want, especially when it is the state, the local school district, the schools, and the parents that have the most direct control over what those kids are taught and what those kids learn. How the hell is eliminating the Department of Education going to get you to your goals? How does it happen?
For me, it's very easy because the Department of Education is a monstrosity of a federal bureaucracy that primarily serves as a regulatory agency, not just about dispersing funds, but as a regulatory agency, and has oftentimes been hijacked by progressive administrations to drive political policies through their regulations that have nothing to do with education. So, for instance, if you wanted to get COVID funding from the Department of Education under Biden, you had to come up with an equity plan. Like, what's the point of that? We got to give money to kids so kids can go to school. And these schools now have to hire people to put together a DEI plan. It has nothing to do with education. It was hijacked by a political, policy-driven agenda, and it didn't actually benefit kids.
But you said an equity plan.
Right.
Does that necessarily mean implementing DEI and hiring those teachers, et cetera? Or
you had to showcase the Department of Education. You were putting together an equity plan.
Yes, but is that an equity plan based on the education of the students? And again, if it is an equity plan.
What is an equity plan based on the education of the students?
That the students are given the equal opportunities that are afforded
you think
to
the
them
Biden administration was going to disperse funds based upon the likelihood of equal opportunity?
No, I'm saying you're saying this is equity. You're assuming that it's on the teachers. I don't know what the equity plan was. I'm asking you questions about what were the implementations, what were they looking for as far as an equity plan. Also, I don't think that given that we have lack of teachers in a number of school districts around the country, that saying we need to find more opportunities for other people to be teachers is necessarily bad. Here's the idea. Here in Colorado, we had a teacher shortage. They talked about the idea that people would skip some of the basic education that you would get, and you would be given credit for the time that you have in your specific area. And so if you were a very good engineer, you could come in and teach certain areas of math.
Yes.
That would be DEI. That would be increasing diversity, inclusion, and equity. That is increasing diversity because they are not educators that have gone through the system and have the certificate. That would be a DEI equity program
No, that's
by
totally
definition.
merit-based.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No.
You have expertise in this area, and then, but you haven't gone through all the processes, the regulations in order to become a teacher.
The person isn't licensed. They're increasing the diversity, inclusion of those people that have opportunities. That is by definition DEI. No, I understand that majority of people think DEI means hire someone that is not qualified. That was some of the functionality of what happened.
The progressive left
who
said we're going to prioritize race, skin color, and sexual identity above everything else.
No, that's not what DEI is, but that's okay.
That's exactly what they made it, though. There's an entire movie. We had the director here.
I know the director, but that is his filter, and that's what he came to. That is not DEI as a whole.
He went out and hired DEI experts, and it was all about race.
Wait for the thing after my comma. Some of the implementation and portions of it were absolutely atrocious. And he highlighted the atrocious implementation and things that were wrong with the system. And part of it being going out and hiring people that all of a sudden were DEI experts when this thing didn't exist a number of years ago. The way in which corporate America and the educational system and large portions of it implemented this was stupid because they were looking for just the name. They were looking for just the office rather than asking what. Out and you get someone that doesn't have the certificate, but you give them a chance in order to teach inside the classroom. That is DEI. That is increasing the diversity and inclusion of the potential teaching population. It just is by definition. But that's okay.
Yeah, I disagree.
It's fine, but that's the definition.
5600, the goal of shutting down the Department of Education, USAID, and others is to obliterate all leftist aspects of the federal government and to end their LGBTQ tyranny and return power to moral, patriotic people.
How is that texture? How does that make our kids smarter?
Every aspect of DEI must die, they say. It's pure racism and depravity.
But the Department of Education has existed for decades. DEI is a brand new boogie word. It's a brand new boogie word. How in the hell is the Department of Education the genesis of DEI when they've been around for decades when we didn't have this?
It was the genesis of it, but it definitely infiltrated the last 20 years.
That's what he said. I know, but we didn't talk DEI last 20 years.
He never said
this has only been something for the last few years. DEI has only been a buzzword for the last few years.
The federal government became the tool by which to push via regulations all these problems. And then we haven't even gotten into the accreditation threat that these accrediting agencies dangled over universities, particularly Christian universities, that if you didn't embrace, to their point, the LGBTQ agenda, you could lose your accreditation, which would essentially shut down these Christian colleges. They had to go fight for it. California Christian colleges had to fight against the effort to take away Cal grants based upon LGBTQ stuff. The educational system, the bureaucracy, became a tool not for improving educational outcomes for children, but for pushing a progressive political agenda. The system needs to be dismantled. It belongs with the states. Parents should have the freedom via educational savings accounts to pick, yes, even private schools to use tax dollars to send their kids to. That's where I stand on all this. I want to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. I want to talk to you about my friend Dan Caplis with Dan Caplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis, the son of a police officer and a former seminarian, has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, here's his phone number, okay? 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551 or hit dancaplislaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. Here's the other thing I want to ask. I came basically to existence right around the time the Department of Education was created. I was born in 1981. Department of Education was created in 1980. Okay, so you've had 45 years of the Department of Education now running and implementing. All of my education's been via the oversight of the Department of Education. Do you believe that you graduated high school prepared to be an adult in this world? Do you think you were given the skills, trained up well by the public education system, the government-run education system, to be effective as an adult? And could you smell it? I could smell it when you could feel politics enter the education system, right? And you felt like there was an agenda being driven in what you were being taught sometimes. That happened to you. Would love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, is the Department of Education worth saving? Have Americans gotten smarter as a result of all the investment into the Department of Education, or is this just a bureaucratic block? Lots of red tape to drive political agendas by whoever's in power, and it needs to be eliminated. Faith texted in 6633. The Department of Education was originally created to collect data on the performance of American students. It was pretty simple, honestly. Over time, their role became to aid helping students and families gain access to quality education. I would contend their most important responsibility is to ensure that schools uphold the federally protected rights of students. Under the law, think students who have disabilities and are entitled to a certain privilege or conditions based on a set of circumstances. As it relates to higher education, their job is to protect those seeking higher education, not fall victim to predatory lenders. Seems as though there is a substantial population of ignorant people with no clue what each department of the executive branch is responsible for. For the record, I teach high school with 200 staff members, and we have one black teacher. So much for DEI hires, huh? Well, Faith, the only thing I want to bring up is that under the Biden administration, you had the redefinition of Title IX in an effort to drive the transgender issue into schools that wasn't done by law. And they used the Department of Education in an effort to achieve that. And so it's just become so politicized. And I'm going to go back to my question. How is education better as a result of the Department of Education? Let's go to the phone lines. Don Aurora. Good morning, Don. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good. How are you today?
I'm doing well. So here's my comment about this DEI stuff, especially. What's happening, and I'm reading some stuff and hearing some rumblings because of the work that I do about companies now being able to say, well, if we can get rid of DEI, then we can also get rid of things that we have to do for people with disabilities. And that's, I'm serious, that is actually being swept up into this DEI thing. And that quite frankly is a bad thing, because there are people like me, a lot of people like me, who, if it wouldn't have been for some of these accessibility laws that have been passed and some of that stuff, I wouldn't probably have a job. And I'm a very good employee. I do good work, and I make a reasonably good salary. But I am hearing and seeing a lot of concern about this DEI. It's going to start involving people with disabilities, unfortunately. And I hope people can separate the two, just like the teacher has said. You have to separate some of this stuff out.
You know, Don, unfortunately, I think that's already bleeding over. If we go to the press conference with Donald Trump after the plane crash in D.C., where did he point the blame? DEI.
I know.
And he highlighted people with disabilities. He didn't highlight hiring people with different skin colors or ethnicities or religion. He went into disabilities. And that's what he targeted.
For air traffic controllers, right?
And it pisses me off. I'm telling you, it pisses me off.
Yep, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely, yes.
Because you don't think there should be any restrictions on the hiring of air traffic controllers as it relates to disabilities?
No.
So, like, if you're blind, for instance,
because listen. Do you really think that a totally blind person is going to be stupid enough to go in there and ask to be an air traffic controller?
Or are they going to be hired?
No.
That's the other part.
But if you have these federal requirements that you have to hire people with this, but you guys just jumped
There's no requirement there.
You guys just jumped from they're going to not hire people based upon disabilities to giving me a perfectly good reason not to hire somebody with a disability.
Here's the idea: is you just rolled it into a quota system. You just rolled the idea of DEI into a quota system, and those
That's
rules.
Part of the critique.
No, but it's not. DEI is not a quota system. No one's ever been able to show me a quota in any one of these programs.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, there isn't a quota program. And if there is a company that goes out there and uses a quota program, they're using DEI incorrectly. And can they get it wrong? Yes. But what Don's talking about is that when Trump had the opportunity, he pointed immediately towards disabled people. There's no reason that someone that has dwarfism couldn't be an air traffic controller, unless you're arguing that those shelves are too high and they can't jump up and push the buttons or see the screen, which again is a whole nother issue.
Are you telling me that? And then you're also getting into the muddy waters of, so you're telling me that the disabled people have a less chance of being intelligent enough to do these jobs. Is that what you're really saying?
No, I don't think anybody's saying that. But some jobs require certain abilities. Right.
I get it.
So if you're
Look,
deaf or if you're blind,
Yeah.
do you think we should be hiring you to be an air traffic controller?
Do you really think somebody with that disability would be stupid enough to go in there and ask for a job?
I don't know, but I don't want them. I mean, I'm seriously, I don't want to. If somebody's blind, I don't want them to be an air traffic controller.
Well,
Is that a
hell
bad
no,
thing to
of course
say?
not.
But then if
Of
you
course
put that
not.
into federal regs,
But does that
is
mean,
the federal reg
that a,
being
but does that mean that a blind
ableist?
person can't go work for the FAA?
I'm sorry, what?
Does that really then mean you're going to say, well, a blind person can't go work for the FAA?
Depends on the job.
Because that's what's going to happen.
Depends on the job. Yes. So they could be qualified for other jobs, correct?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
What's
the
wrong
only
with that?
Absolutely.
well,
But
that's
not
but that's
how
what
it's
Donald Trump.
But we
Donald
just
Trump
had a
pointed-
plane and a helicopter crash into each other.
So
And Trump
is that.
wants to know, are there federal regs that are putting unqualified people into the
So
position?
why did he go after the
Yep.
disabled first?
Yep,
Come on,
exactly.
really? Why?
Are there federal
Why?
regs that would allow a blind person to become a air traffic controller?
Here's the fun
I
part.
don't know.
He's president. He should know. And those are
For like
regulations.
2 weeks?
But those were regulations that he started. Those regulations
Yes.
were implemented under Donald Trump's first term. That's
Yes,
when those started.
absolutely.
He had an announcement on his social media platform
Blind
about how
people
wonderful it was.
are able to serve as
No,
air
you're-
traffic
you're-
controllers?
No, you're missing.
You're missing the point.
narrowing
You're
it
intentionally
down.
missing the point.
No,
You're intentionally
here's what
missing
I'm
the point.
pointing out. You guys
You're
are
intentionally
going,
missing it.
it's terrible because now DEI is going to restrict disabled people from being able to get jobs. Look at what Donald Trump did during the press conference, all that stuff. And what I saw during the press conference was Donald Trump wanting to know, are these types of DEI regulations affecting the quality of our air traffic controllers?
Well, I'm sorry, but I disagree with you because to me, what he pointed out, he picked on disabled people first. He picked on them. He's never liked people with disabilities. It was apparent in his first term. And to sweep all of us up under the auspices of DEI is ridiculous. And yeah, I'm not going to go hire myself out as an air traffic controller. For God's sake, I'm not that damn stupid. I do a lot of computer work and I'm very good at it. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go out and become a brain surgeon. Come on. I mean, that you're making assumptions that are just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. And Don, you could do computer work for the FAA behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
You could run
I
some of those
I don't think there's
spreadsheets.
any problem
could
with
be a
that.
programmer.
The
I could
problem, guys,
program- I
has
could
to do,
program
you had a
some of their
plane and a
flight
helicopter
aviation
hit each
stuff.
other.
Yeah.
Not whether or not there's a computer guy back in the
But
back
Donald,
parts of the
but
FAA
Donald,
doing
but Donald
work.
Trump didn't make that delineation. He
Right,
just said
he didn't.
disabled people shouldn't be hired by the FAA, and
That's
that's the
right, he
problem.
did.
And here's the
Oh,
other
you
part.
guys are reading too
No,
much
no,
into
no,
it.
not at all. And
No,
because
no.
we know how this goes. Because Don knows it, and I know it. Having a disabled son, I know how this goes. And the problem inside of this is twofold. One, and Don's absolutely right. Categorizing people that have disabilities as not being qualified to do these jobs. And then two, and these are all jobs inside the FAA. He didn't say, were the air traffic controllers disabled? He didn't go there. He talked about the FAA hiring people. The FAA has a lot of different positions. The other problem then means if people like Don and my son are too disabled and they can't possibly do the jobs, how are they going to earn a living? Are you expecting them to live on the street? Because that's the thing. You then need to provide them a way to feed themselves. Are you going to pay for their rent? Are you going to pay for the utilities? Are you going to pay for their food? Because you're not allowing them to go out and get a job to feed themselves.
That what Donald
And
Trump
there are-
was, the idea that Donald Trump was concerned about computer programmers in some back room with regards to the FAA is just not true at all. He cares about who was managing the tower, who are the
No,
air
he
traffic
never said
controllers,
that.
Never said that.
and
He never
the guys.
said that.
I mean, it's just crazy that you're the one extrapolating that somehow the computer programmers in the back room is who Donald Trump was talking about.
Okay.
Well,
You
just
had
remember,
an
70%
airplane and a helicopter crash into each other. He's concerned
That
about
is
the safety of American people as it relates
That
to
is
our air
not-
traffic controllers. All right, we got to get
Sorry,
to a
that's
break.
not how he worded it.
Yeah,
Don,
I agree, Don. And
Thanks for the call.
And here's the way you put a pin on it. He's the president of the United States of America. Before he did that press conference, could have picked up the phone and asked someone at that tower who was on duty, and then he could have asked. He didn't ask those questions. He made the assumption. He made the assumption that it was because of diversity. And so far, none of those assumptions have proven to be correct.
And you guys have to look at the fact that Obama also said that we have too many white air traffic controllers. So you want to get into Trump and that type of stuff when Obama was limiting the quality of our air traffic controllers solely based on race. All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The conversation this hour around the Department of Education. Is it necessary? Is it needed? Is it actually improving our schools? Or is Trump trying to take away an important aspect of Americans' educational system? What are your thoughts? Let's go to Brendan Castle Rock. Good morning, Brendan. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good morning.
What's on your mind?
What's on your mind?
So I'm a college student right now. I attend the University of Missouri. I'm the president of my university's College Republicans.
Fantastic.
And I was really interested when I was first hearing about talks of abolishing the Department of Education because I received the highest amount of Pell Grants that is available because of my family's financial situation. And so I was concerned. I was like, oh, well, how's this going to impact Pell Grants? And then I looked into it a little bit, and I found that the budget for Pell Grants has hardly increased since 2006.
Wow.
Yet the overall budget for the Department of Education has increased like 10 times more since 2006.
Wow.
So it's a very disproportionate amount of Pell Grants, of funding for Pell Grants and the overall funding for the department. And yet we have more and more young people applying for colleges, trying to go to school. We have people going into debt over school. I'm fortunate enough to have only taken out $3,500 of student loans.
Ooh, nice
and
job.
that's the amount that I'm going to be taking out for my entire time in college. And so, but a lot of people aren't as fortunate as me, and it's hard to get scholarships, especially because of a bunch of DEI stuff. I mean, when I was a senior in high school, the only time, like, we got weekly emails about scholarships, but all these scholarships, you had to either be a Black person, a woman, part of the LGBT community, all sorts of, like, I'm a straight white man. There was nothing out there for me.
Brendan,
So
hasn't that been existent for a while, though? We've always had minority-based scholarships. We've always had scholarships that choose based on your area of learning. We have scholarships that are based on athletics. We have scholarships for club participation. I mean, you can get all sorts of different scholarships. I'm not necessarily certain that means all those scholarships for years have been DEI.
Oh, yeah, and not all of them. And we do need something. We need some of those because there are...
I mean, a scholarship based on someone's race is the definition of DEI.
Yeah, I'm torn on it.
We've had those, but we have those opportunity scholarships for years in order to increase opportunities for those individuals. It's not the idea of looking for you seem to be interpreting
You're
it
literally
as,
looking at someone's skin color and going, well, they're the ones who are going to get the money.
Yeah, and I'm torn on it because I can see the reason on why it's important, but at the same time, you also have to be able to provide opportunities for other people.
Right. I mean, to your point, Brendan, you didn't pick your skin color. I don't think it's fair. I'll be honest, but I appreciate the call. We're up against the break here. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. And we are off and running. We've got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Billy and I discussing the shuttering of the Department of Education. Is it a good thing? Or are we setting up our kids for educational disaster? Let's go back to the phone lines, and we'll get to news and comment with Blake Olson. And let's do Chad Greeley. He's been waiting the longest now. Chad, good morning. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for calling.
You guys should look. There is very stringent hiring practices to become an air traffic controller. I looked into it at one point in time that they won't even start to train you unless you're 30. It's either 32 or 35. So before you guys stir up a big hornet's nest, do some Google searches, stop gaslighting, get some good solid information out there. This bickering back and forth, that doesn't enlighten anybody.
And they cut off applications at 59, I think it is. They kick you out.
No. To be up in the tower, they won't train you unless you're in your early 30s.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying there is a ceiling too. That after you get to a certain age, you're not allowed to be there as well.
I mean, so
guys, hear me out. I've worked in aviation. Accumulance of tolerances get people killed. In aviation, there is no exceptions to the rules.
Yeah,
they
but
refer to themselves. No, hear me out.
Hold on, Chad. There's a major class action lawsuit that has been filed against the Federal Aviation Agency over claims that applications for air traffic controllers were rejected based on race.
You know, I can only deal with the reality of gravity as I was a mechanic, but let me tell you that gravity doesn't play those games.
I think that's the point we're trying to point out here. Is that when it comes to really important things, your surgeon, the air traffic controller, the pilot, those types of things, when you engage in this progressive ideology of DEI, there are serious consequences.
Reality is reality, but you guys try to get good facts out there.
Hey, Chad,
no more gaslighting.
Chad, I understand that. I understand the gaslighting and the facts. Do you believe that DEI means hiring unqualified people for the job?
No,
it's a yes or no. Is DEI programs mean that you're going to hire unqualified people for those jobs? What's your opinion? Just your opinion. What's your opinion?
Their opinion that they would be hired regardless of their...
No, yours. I'm not talking theirs. I'm talking yours. I want to know what your filter is on DEI. Do you believe DEI means we need to hire unqualified people for those positions just because of DEI? Or do you believe that those people are qualified and then we are expanding the diversity that exists there, but those people also meet the standards? I just want to know your opinion on it, man.
Here's the deal. The only thing that can matter in aviation is their aptitude. That's the only thing that can matter.
But that's a lot. But Chad, that's a lot of words. That's a lot of words to not answer the question, man. I'm just asking you directly.
No, it's not.
I'm asking. Yes, it is. Yes, I will try again. Do you believe, in your opinion? Now, I'm not talking about aviation industry or anything else. I'm talking about in your opinion. Do you believe that DEI means you hire someone that is unqualified for that position? Your opinion?
No, you can't mix. Aviation is totally different than any other industry.
I'm asking your opinion on DEI. I said take that out of the situation. I'm asking Chad's opinion on how he views DEI. Do you believe that DEI means we hire unqualified people for those positions, regardless of who they are and where they're applying for? I don't care. Not aviation. Let's take it outside aviation in general. What do you think? What do you think, man? I just want your opinion on this.
No, absolutely.
So what do you think? Is it hiring unqualified people? Is it yes, it's hiring unqualified people, or no, it's not hiring unqualified?
I think he said yes. I agree with him.
I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and look, you have
and that
a
tells
guy.
me a lot about your filter and why you view this and why you view the aviation that way. I agree with you that it is all based on meritocracy and merit, but it also doesn't mean that someone that adds diversity to that workspace couldn't do the job. But you've assumed
Nobody
they can't.
has said that.
Nobody
has
just
said
did.
that.
He just did.
Bill, you said hiring people based on DEI brings in unqualified people.
Yeah,
Let
he
me
just said
read
that.
you this lawsuit.
He
Okay,
said that, yes.
Andrew Brigada. Hold on.
Listen,
Andrew Brigada, who scored 100% on his training exam. Okay, he was discriminated against based upon his race when his application was rejected in January of 2014. He received an email informing him that the FAA was, quote, implementing changes to improve and streamline the hiring process of air traffic controllers, and that his application was impacted by these changes. He was rejected based upon his, quote, biographical assessment, his race, because they wanted to specifically hire more minority applicants. That is DEI, and it rejected people based upon merit and accommodated people based upon
who was hired,
skin color.
Who was hired in his stead.
That is the point of the lawsuit.
No,
we're going to find that out.
Yeah, but here's the thing is he's assuming that it wasn't someone that was also qualified but met their goal based on diversity. The issue is the assumption that we're dealing with is that the other person wasn't qualified. And that's what I was outlining with Chad and outlining with you. It's an assumption you can't necessarily back up, nor does that lawsuit back
our
up
friends
right
at
now.
Mountain States Legal Foundation are going to dive into this and find out.
I know, but they don't seem to say that inside the filing, do they? That the person that replaced him, the person that was hired instead, was unqualified?
See, guys, in aviation,
a lot of times you do these lawsuits to find out this information. I mean, when you have somebody else that's hired, you don't know based upon what they're hired by.
And that's why I'm pointing out the conclusion. Yes, go ahead, Chad.
Guys, when you're in an airplane, do you want anything to matter? You know, the people's aptitude, the mechanics, the pilots, their aptitude matters. Nothing else.
I agree with you, Chad. Thanks so much for the call.
Chad, I agree with you. Chad, I agree with
Greeley's line will be open.
I totally agree with him. The issue, though, is that his assumption is that DEI, that anybody that was hired in his view under DEI isn't qualified. He's not willing to judge based on merit.
And Bill,
we're not
you're
judging
saying,
based on merit.
and the assumption you're making is that all the other people that were hired scored just as good. They just happened to fit these DEI qualifications that the FAA set out. Ergo, no, nothing's wrong.
No, my assumption is that the DEI goals at times of implementation can be flawed. And this could be an example of it being flawed, but it's not an indictment of the entire program or the idea or assumption, because we've been doing things like DEI for decades. We've just decided that DEI now is the buzzword that we're mad about. But we've been doing this for years. I brought up the Veterans Administration yesterday. The idea that you check a box on your job application that you're a veteran is a DEI program in name. That's how it works.
No,
because they're trying to increase the diversity inside of it. That's all it is. We can disagree about the implementation of it.
The critique from conservatives is that DEI is focusing on irrelevant aspects in order to drive a political agenda. What is your skin color? What is your sexuality? Nobody cares, especially in an air traffic controller, any of those things. I want to land safely. That's the only thing that matters. And when you have the Obama administration that's saying, no, we're going to arbitrarily set benchmarks, like 50% of FAA controllers are going to be minorities. Nobody cares. And the problem when you set those benchmarks is that you're going to implement policies that hire unqualified people in order to do it.
Let's go back and I'm just going to bring this in, and it was a little tangential. The reference of the Los Angeles County fire chief. She was referred to as a DEI hire. Do we have any information that she was unqualified? Anything?
Yeah, you have a giant fire.
Wait.
That is evidence that she's unqualified.
Oh, so just when a giant fire breaks out means that the person is incompetent?
Response is
we can say
super clear that she's incompetent.
How is she responsible for the fire?
The response, putting it out. Because it was a terrible response. If you look at the articles, how quickly they responded to the initial fire, all of that stuff, the ability to get the fire trucks repaired, the water pressure problems.
But the water pressure
tanks
repair,
were
that's a
not
funding
full.
issue. That's a
All
funding
that
issue.
stuff.
The repairs, we've already discussed the
Oh,
tanks.
it's
We've already
always
discussed. We've
another
always
somebody
discussed.
else's problem.
No, but we've already discussed.
She was hired based upon her sexuality and her gender. She was not qualified. And the best example of that is the response to the fire.
And you're making all of those assumptions based on having no information behind that. You have no idea based on her qualifications or anything else, but you assume that because you dislike how she dealt with the fire. And again, this is like a once in 100-year fire.
Bill, you have videos of them talking about how they're unqualified. They can't carry out a man in a fire, and they blame the man for being in the fire.
That is not the LA County fire chief that is in that video.
It's evidence of a system.
That's not the LA County fire chief, and nor does it
It's
show
what,
that
the
she's
deputy?
unqualified.
It's the deputy who's talking about that?
It's also not evidence that she is unqualified. But the assumption is because she's a woman, she's obviously unqualified, because what we've decided with DEI is if it's not a white man in that role, anybody else obviously is unqualified, because we know that women and minorities are inherently less qualified than white men.
Nope.
That's how DEI has taken hold.
You guys,
That's exactly what it is.
Progressives have set up a system where they are trying to hit arbitrary goals based upon driving political agendas. They do this over and over again, and they put unqualified. And the condemnation of her leadership are the burnt homes in Pacific Palisades. All right. We haven't even gotten to news and comment yet. Welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's turn it over to Blake Olson for news and comment.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
All right, Jeff and Billy, love it. Thank you very much. 40 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 63 today. It's going to be beautiful. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, a list of workers who investigated Capitol riot cases has reportedly been turned over by the FBI to the Justice Department. According to multiple reports, the agency handed over agent and personnel information to the DOJ leadership on Tuesday afternoon that included titles and employee ID numbers of 5,000 people. Now Kash Patel needs to be confirmed, and the corrupt among us don't want that to happen.
They broke the law. They broke the chain of command. They broke every regulation there is in the FBI. They weaponized the system of justice against a political target they hated. We found those text messages, and we got them declassified finally in full when I became Deputy Director of National Intelligence. And the world has now seen them, and they can read them. And that's the best form of transparency. That's why I want this 24/7 declassification office. Don't have me regurgitate it to you. Read it. Get the documents, get the files, get the memos. But the deep state came full circle and gave these guys a payday for rigging a presidential election and breaking the law. So now you know what happens. That's step one. Step two, get America.
DJT, he wants to become safe. America is cut off right there. DJT will become the governor, will welcome the governors of Texas and California to the White House today. He's set to hold separate meetings with Texas Governor Greg Abbott and California Governor Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi's nephew, in the Oval Office. Abbott and Trump worked together on the southern border, and DJT tried to help Nuisance after he destroyed his state. A federal judge will hear arguments this morning over 47's executive order that aims to restrict birthright citizenship. The executive order last month was put on hold after almost half of all states sued to try and stop it. Today's arguments come from a suit from immigrant right advocacy groups and 5 pregnant undocumented women, legal alien women. President Trump says the U.S. is prepared to take over Gaza. He said Palestinians have no alternative but to leave Gaza and find somewhere else to live.
I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable. And I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world will be there, and they'll live there. Palestinians also. Palestinians will live there. Many people will live there. But they've tried the other, and they've tried it for decades and decades and decades. It's not going to work. It didn't work. It will never work. And you have to learn from history. History has, just can't let it keep repeating itself.
Trump did not rule out the possibility of sending in U.S. troops to help accomplish his vision. Crews have recovered all 67 victims in last week's mid-air collision near D.C. The cockpit and tail from the regional jet were recovered earlier in the day. Peter Bernegger, leading election fraud investigator on InfoWars, says the DJT ready to target massive lefty election fraud.
They're going to eliminate absentee mail-in ballots. They're going to trash and garbage the machines. And I tell you how they're going to do it, because everybody's going to jump in and say, oh, that's a state law. No, it isn't. When President Trump can say, stop using the machines or I'm going to cut off your federal funding. That's how he's going to do it. Then he's also going to put in, he's looking at the voter registration list. So we'll see what happens when it comes out.
A statement on the USAID website says employees around the world will be placed on administrative leave on Friday. Elon Musk posted a meme on X last night that is so true. Says the same people terrified of Doge are the ones who wanted to hire 87,000 additional IRS agents to audit you. Now, here's one of the most eloquent politicians out there. Fighting back against Doge, I present to you Maxine Waters.
Nobody elected you. You think you're the president of the United States of America?
Oh, hell no.
The co-president that can take over, go into our private payment system and do whatever you want to do? You got another thought coming. We're going to stop you right now.
What would you say you do here?
What the hell is wrong with you people?
All right, the Pelicans at the Nuggets tonight at 7 o'clock. Canucks shut out the Avalanche 3-0, 36 in Castle Pines and 35 in Lafayette and 40 in Denver. It's Jeff and Billy. They continue.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
And we are only 16 days in. This is day 16. Let's go. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. The cat and mouse game we've been playing with colder air from the north occasionally coming in and Pacific air pushing it out continues today. The Pacific pushes out the cooler air. Temperatures all the way into the mid-60s today. Gusty and strong southwest winds, especially foothill. Lows tonight, lower 30s. A bit cooler but mild. 50s on Thursday and sunny. Sunny Friday. Temperatures go back up into the 60s. However, temperatures start to trend downward this weekend, and the downward trend continues into next week. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We have one line that is open, 303-696-1971. Call in and tell me why I am wrong. We are talking about the elimination, potentially, of the Department of Education and how this is all going to make us smarter. We're going to find out. But I want to make you a little bit smarter right now about some personal issues. No, not the mental ones that I have, but I'm talking about physical issues. You might have a slow-healing cut. Something, as you get older, they don't heal quite as quickly as they did. Or maybe somebody in your family has a diabetic ulcer, a pressure sore. Here's the deal. Ignoring the problem doesn't fix the problem. You know this. You've seen people that take the black electrical tape and cover up the check engine light on the car. That didn't help. Can't see it, but it doesn't mean the problem didn't exist still and isn't causing a larger problem. That can happen when you have slow healing cuts, pressure sores, diabetic ulcers, because that torn skin is the perfect place for dirt, germs, and bacteria to get access to the rest of your body, your organs, your bloodstream. That little cut can become a very big deal. That's why I'm excited to tell you about our fantastic new sponsor, Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Jennifer is going to be in with us for a segment next hour to talk about their expert wound care professionals and how they have a game changer on two things here in town. The first is it's personalized care in the comfort and privacy of your own home. Just like when they used to do house calls, same thing. That's what Wound Care Associates of Colorado do. They come to your house, they assess your wound, they develop a personalized treatment plan and provide all the necessary care to heal your wound. in a compassionate, comprehensive, and private environment based on your schedule. You don't have to worry about making sure you get time off or driving over to the office and hanging out there for a while, and then you get seen, and then you got to drive back. This is on your schedule, on your calendar. They come to where you are. It couldn't be easier. The other game changer is the nursing care professionals at Wound Care Associates of Colorado want to make sure your wound heals. Too many wound treatment facilities just want to maintain the wound. That was one of the problems I had with my aunt. She developed a sore on her leg. She did have some comorbidities, some diabetes, some emphysema, and the small cut started to get infected. She went in and got some treatment at a hospital a couple of times. One of those times she picked up MRSA. That MRSA put her in the hospital for days at a time, created all sorts of other problems, and that wound never healed. She ended up with some amputations because of the MRSA, not because of the original wound, but because of those dirt, germs, and bacteria that got access because of the cut that wouldn't heal. That's why Wound Care Associates of Colorado is different and better than the rest of them out there. The comfort, convenience, and privacy of the treatment in your own home, a personalized treatment plan that is tailored for your needs, and they are going to fix the wound and make it better, not just maintain it and hope for the best. You wouldn't go to a doctor that was just going to hope for the best. Maybe this will get better. I don't know. You wouldn't go take your car to a mechanic. It's like, we'll just maintain this and hope that the wheels don't fall off. You wouldn't do that. So why would you do that to your own health? Don't. Take the step. If you or a loved one is struggling with a chronic wound, to get it fixed today. ColoradoWound.com. Reach out to them at ColoradoWound.com. Don't ignore the problem. Fix the problem. ColoradoWound.com. And when you reach out to them, tell them you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show, because boy, does it help us out. And now, back to your regularly scheduled program.
That's great to hear, Bill. And we're excited to have her in studio here. Jennifer Walker with Wound Care Associates of Colorado in the 9 o'clock hour coming up. All right, let's go back to the phone lines because they're jam-packed. And then Billy and I are going to get to Gaza-Lago, whatever Donald Trump's going to build where Palestine used to be. Let's go, Jack, Denver. Good morning, Jack. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning. Billy, I don't often compliment you, but your exchange with Chad, you both had some very good points. But I'm going to address the DEI issue.
Cool. Yeah, what's on your mind?
And with the Los Angeles Fire Department and with this airplane business down there in Delaware, I think that it's on point right now. It's got to be. And for Trump trying to eliminate the DEI hire routine that was put in by the Democrats is absolutely has to be done. And because there are jobs that are what they call safety sensitive. And like an air traffic controller, I spent my whole life as a pipeline welder. The reason why your gas lines in Denver and every city in the United States aren't breaking open and the gasoline coming and the natural gas coming out and blowing up buildings, because there's a very, very, very stringent testing procedure that you have to go through in order to go on those jobs. And I've done that for my whole life. I've been on, and also with nuclear power plants, the high pressure piping in there. I've gone on jobs where they've tested 45 welders and they could get 3 that could pass it. And I've always been one of them, obviously. But and then there was that's for public safety, and I don't see it any different than a traffic controller. I mean, the reason your pipes aren't blowing up is because they don't let anybody weld on them unless they've absolutely been tested thoroughly. And then after they pass the test and they put them on the job, they X-ray every weld. And if they find a couple of flaws or voids inside your welds, they tap you on the shoulder and they give you your paycheck and they say, adios, man. And in 60 years of being a pipeline welder, I have never once seen a female or a black welder on a pipeline. Now that's not discrimination. It's discrimination with respect to whether you have the ability to do the job. And that's what we have to go back to. And Trump is absolutely right about that. And my heart's broken for 160 people dead because they put some idiot because she's entitled to the job. She used to work for Joe Biden. Whoop-de-woo-doodle. I mean, come on, let's get real with this thing.
But how's the plane crash responsible based on someone Joe Biden put in position there? Can you help me connect those dots?
Because she was a traffic controller and she worked for Joe Biden just prior to that. She's 20-something years old, and she should have been notifying the person from her tower in the helicopter telling them that you're 200 feet above your area where you're allowed to be because you're in the flight path of the incoming airplanes. That's why that accident happened, according to what I hear on the news and on the internet. We can't have incompetent people in safety critical positions because of DEI. DEI has got to go. It's got to go.
Okay. What was the position? What was the staffing situation inside of the tower at the time?
They were understaffed, right?
Yeah, they were understaffed.
Yeah.
That doesn't appear to necessarily be a DEI consequence. And if you had two people manning one the helicopter and one on the plane, you may have had a different outcome. You may have had someone be able to correct the pilot. But I disagree that because she made a mistake, she's an unqualified DEI hire. She made a mistake. But you're jumping to the conclusion, Jack, that because of her tiny lady brain and she's a DEI hire, she couldn't have done it and she's associated with Biden. So again, you've created and you've operated off a whole bunch of assumptions that so far
Billy,
haven't been proven.
The assumptions I got came over the internet and they come over the airways. These are all vicarious positions I'm offering. I've only heard them from somebody else. I'm not an eyewitness to any of them. I couldn't testify to them in a courtroom.
Yeah, but she was wrong. Yeah, and she was wrong, and she was flying at a level that she shouldn't have been. But it doesn't necessarily mean that she's either unqualified because she's a woman.
Jack's point, though, you have these programs that have been set up, both coming from the federal government as well as piloting from airlines that have said, we're going to hit what I consider to be arbitrary numbers. We want a certain amount of our pilots to look like this or to be this gender. So the complaint coming from folks like Jack and others is that we have set up systems and we don't know. There are investigations going on right now. But if we want to be a serious country about protecting the safety of our citizens, what you look like, your gender, your sexuality should have nothing to do with whether or not you get a job.
However, but it always seems to come up when we're critiquing the people that are making the wrong choices, because even though it's not supposed to have anything to do with it, that was where Jack landed on, was exactly there. And I have said openly over and over again, quota systems in any type of hiring is wrong. And I don't care if it's DEI or anything else. That type of a quota system is bad because you will try to fit square pegs into round holes. And that is a misappropriation and a misapplication of DEI. Absolutely. Absolutely, that's wrong. Any sort of quota system like that is 110% wrong. And I deal with that even in the sport that I love, soccer. There are leagues out there that have quota systems, and they're wrong. I agree with Jack. I agree with Jeff that the quota system's wrong.
Hey, Billy.
But I don't agree with the idea that we can assume that she is a DEI failure. Yes, sir.
That's fine.
Billy. Soccer is the most popular ball game on the planet, and you call it soccer. Everywhere else in the world is called football.
Where am I living, sir?
You're in the United States.
And
right
what do we
now.
call it? And what do we call it in the United States?
It's football.
I know, but what do we call it in the United States? That's why I use the silly word. When I'm talking to my friends, we refer to it as football. When I'm talking to my oldest, we talk about it as football.
Call.
Thanks, man. I
Thank
appreciate
you so
that. That was a good
much.
call.
Jack's line will be open 303-696-1971. Look, if the last couple of years have taught us one thing, it's to value the things we can control. Speaking of the conversation we're in, and addressing hair loss is no exception. Our friends at Advanced Hair Restoration can reverse years, even decades of hair loss with their simple one-day treatment. Your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day, and your new hair is backed by the Advanced Hair Guarantee. It works for bald spots, receding hairlines, thinning hair, men, women, younger, wiser. Advanced Hair can address many different patterns of hair loss. Advanced Hair's top-rated physicians like Dr. Tanya Pauls have changed tens of thousands of people's lives, and now it's your turn. Schedule a free consultation by calling 720-459-HAIR, and to celebrate the beginning of 2025, get special financing, 250 free hair grafts, and $250 off. Value the things you can control and start regrowing your own natural hair today. The phone number again, 720-459-HAIR, or become inspired with before and after pictures at advancedhair.com. Let's go one more call. Bob, Denver. Good morning, Bob. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning. Hey, real quick, I'm supposed to be at work at 8:30 here, but I wanted to chime in. I love that both you know, the Jeff and Bill, I love that there's both sides of the story. And Bill, mainly talking to you because you really make the conservative think. And I love that this DEI that you're making, like we're the assumption that they are not qualified. But I want to give an analogy because I think you're wrong on that. Because if let's say the score to get to be hired is 70 out of 100, okay, and then you have a white person, male, that gets 100, and then someone who's minority gets a 98. You might want to hire the 98 because, hey, we're being diverse and we want to have diversity in our programs in our workplace. But once you do that, it's a slippery slope, because what now if it's someone gets 100 and then someone gets a 72? Are you going to hire the 72? It shouldn't be that way. It should be whoever's getting the 100. And then if you have to hire a certain amount of minorities, let's say if I hire 5 minorities, but they get a 69 instead of the 70, then you're like, well, let's have them retake the test. Maybe they get it to the 70. So it's a slippery slope. That's why it's a bad deal. However, it should be a flip. If all the minorities are getting higher scores, and the one who's not a minority is getting a 72, they shouldn't be hired either. I got to run. I'll let you answer
Hey,
it.
Bob,
Thanks.
I appreciate you, Bob, and I apologize for all the times I made you yell at the radio in the morning. I'm sorry, but have a good day at work.
No worries.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Bob. Great
That was
call.
great. That
Bob
was really
from
cool.
Denver. Do you want to respond?
Yeah, he makes a great point, and I agree with him that if we're looking at the idea of a 198 versus a 70, that's a dumb decision. And for me, if that is the implementation that the company, the group has done based on DEI, they're completely and totally wrong, and they've got it ass backwards. The 100 to 98, I can see making the minority choice, because I don't think there's necessarily going to be, again, I'm making some assumptions here, and I realize that difference between the two as far as level of performance, and the minority hire may add some diversity of experience or perspective that the team doesn't have. That could be a merit, again, depending on what the team is doing and what their goal is. If it is just assembling left-handed widgets, I'm not convinced that that's going to be that much of a delineator on someone being better than the other person. But he's right based on quotas, and I can see him, and I think that he's 110% right when he talks about the idea. And I dislike slippery slope arguments because I think they're a logical fallacy, but I think that he does have a very, very accurate point when we start trying to bend the requirements in order to fit a diversity goal by saying this wouldn't even be allowed. This person wouldn't make the list, but because we have this goal and this quota, we need to bend the rules in order to take somebody that wouldn't make it normally. He's at 110% right that is a misapplication, and I will be willing to stand right next to everybody else and scream and yell about DEI for every company and every organization that implemented it that way. That is wrong. But the difference between the 100 and the 98, if the minority candidate that gets the 98 instead of 100 can add some other diversity that might be needed inside that organization, there could be something there. There could be something that's a nice attitude. We deal with the DEI on some of my music programming. We bring people from all sorts of different musical genres in because they hear the music differently. And we all have a different opinion when we come to the table. I sit there and I discuss urban rap all the time. I don't know, white guy. I mean, I've got some history in rap, but I'm not the audience. But my perspective on what I'm hearing is valued inside the meetings, even though there's no way I belong inside that major P1 demographic.
All right, great conversation. We're going to pivot now because I do want to cover this, and then we've got a busy 9 o'clock hour. But Donald Trump wants America to rebuild Gaza. Is that going to be Mara Gaza or Gaza Lago? All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
That is so wrong and so good. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Trump says U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip. President Donald Trump on Tuesday said the United States will take over the Gaza Strip and promised to rehabilitate the land destroyed after 15 months of war. We'll own it and be responsible, Trump said, pledging to create an economic development that would supply an unlimited number of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job. He didn't provide details on it. Although Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised the idea. Well, of course, the current residents are lobbing rockets and kidnapping and stealing and assaulting the Israelis. So, yeah, a change would be welcomed. What do you think about this? My sense is Trump wants to turn this into a what's a really nice part of the Middle East? That Dubai. I think he looks at it and he goes, look, Dubai 25 years ago was barren wasteland. Now it's just beautiful. Look at all the great opportunity. Problem he's going to run into are, of course, the Palestinians.
That's inconvenient. People that live there. Yeah, but we've done that before here in America, right? You feel me, Native Americans? You know how this works out. We've seen this dance before.
Although I would not lump Native Americans and Palestinians together.
Well, the thing is that, and I think Peter Boyles is right about this, that the Palestinians have become the international Native Americans in some cases. And that's how they're treated and looked at. I
think there's a lot that the Palestinians do to bring it upon themselves.
Yeah, as far as Hamas and things like that, but I can understand why they feel, given their situation, that their only means out is violence. They're wrong. And I completely disagree with their support of Hamas. I think there's a better way.
The worldview is to eliminate Jews from the entire world.
I'm not certain that's Palestinian. I think that's Hamas. I think that's
Palestinians elected Hamas. You're right.
Yeah,
it is the political group, but they were elected by
But yeah, that's the thing, though. But I'm not certain that because we elected Donald Trump, it means we believe everything that he says, or because you elect another leader, they believe everything they say. I'm not certain I'm willing to draw that line. But what I'm really worried about is he's publicly advocating for a war crime, which is ethnic cleansing, which is picking up a group of people and moving them somewhere else in mass. And they don't want to go. That is, by definition, an ethnic cleansing. He's announced that the U.S. wants to commit a war crime. I got a problem with that. I'm like,
I think it's a reach. I think he wants it to look like Dubai, the current leadership by the Palestinians.
Why does he get to move the Palestinians? Why do we get to usurp their self-determination?
Well,
why
I think there's a lot
to do that?
There's a lot of assumptions there that their self-determination is necessarily a good thing when it results in the casualties against the Israelis. I'm sorry, if your culture, if your group is just and I don't think this has to do with race. I think it has to do with the ideology. Okay. If your ideology is resulting in the death of a lot of other people we don't say because we want to get rid of Al-Qaeda that all of a sudden it's an ethnic cleansing.
But
the same.
But Al-Qaeda is a terrorist group. They're not an ethnicity. Palestinian is an ethnicity inside of the Middle East.
I think Trump sees that the Palestinians can live there, but the current management of it is terrible. Anyways, let's get to the phone lines. Let's go to Francis Golden. Good morning, Francis. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, guys. Hey, did I miss a memo? When did we have any authority over Gaza? When did the U.S. have any authority that was ever granted to it, or that was
as soon as Trump
saw armed conflict?
As soon as Trump saw the beachfront property and thought about developing it, that is the first time we decided we want it.
This is really all right. Wait a minute. Now let me just back up, like even just a few days when I've listened to some callers, some others, where everybody is saying we need to just take care of our own. We need to focus our resources on helping people internally, not externally.
Great
why
point.
in the world would anybody think this is a good idea? And why? What is it? I mean, look, Donald Trump has a form of adult attention deficit disorder or something. Why would he even open his mouth about this? Is there some filter that he doesn't have? I mean, it's absurd. You can't do this. You have no authority to do this. And just like Bill just said, I mean, you're basically advocating what amounts to a war crime. I don't know why you do this. It seems like Are you just playing to one
Francis,
of the lapdogs?
how is allowing Palestine and Hamas and all those continuing to operate not a war crime?
Look, that's okay. Yeah, there's war crimes that occur all over the world in various ways, shapes, and forms. And the last time I checked, the U.S. is not the world police. I mean, and isn't that the MAGA stance on this stuff? Why are we,
Francis? I think that's the most compelling side of it. Is like, look, this Trump didn't want to be in Iraq. Really wanted to get out of Afghanistan. I think what we have learned is trying to nation build in the Middle East is a giant waste.
And look, the fundamental problem here you can't fix, which is basically you've got two basic sets of people that want to occupy the same ground for religious reasons, and they can't do it. And, I mean, they coexisted for a long time, and then suddenly post World War II, you kind of just stick a whole bunch of Jewish settlements in there, and ever since then, it's been literally an ongoing war. It's been a 60-year war that just blisters up sometimes.
Well,
and that's what we're still dealing with.
And
we can't fix that. How do we fix that?
I mean, the question to Israel, and I think it's a very fair position for them to be in, is they can't go back to October 6th. There were too many people that died on October 7th. And so the idea that we're just going to live next door to these neighbors, we as Americans, if Mexico was literally kidnapping Americans, taking them over, assaulting them, murdering them, decapitating them, launching rockets constantly into America,
Point of information.
we wouldn't allow that to continue to take place.
It was an attack by Hamas, not an attack by the Palestinians. That would be tantamount to if the drug cartels are coming into America and oh wait, they already are.
But
that's why we're
think,
attacking them.
I don't
we're
know.
not blaming Mexico
I understand
for that.
the distinction. I get it, and I think it's a fair distinction. But I also think it is embedded into that religious worldview, whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, or others, that the Jews have to be exterminated from the globe. And I don't know how you live with those types of people. I'm sorry. I just don't know. Francis, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We just got to get to a break here. We'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Donald Trump says the U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip. Which do you like better, Billy? Mara Gaza or Gaza Lago?
Honestly, Gaza Lago is kind of fun.
I mean, what if 20 years from now it looked like Dubai?
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I go back to Afghanistan. I'm like, we invested $1 billion in Afghanistan, and they now don't let little girls go to school.
Yeah,
so,
most of that stuff breaks stuff. The thing that I've got is I could see it if we were going to build it as the two-state solution for the Palestinians. If it was like the idea that we're going to rebuild this, and that's why rather than move you out and then let somebody else just take over the property.
Here's a job for you.
Yeah,
or some concrete.
That was the problem that they had originally placing Israel there. And so you think that the problem is going to get better by moving another group of people out? I'm shocked that this is going to be the solution. If they could do it as an economic investment to help out the Palestinians, I think he got something there. That's why my recommendation under Biden was he should be taking that Iranian money that we've seized and say, this is earmarked for redevelopment in Gaza.
Yeah,
because the Iranians then can't moan about it because then they look like the bad guys.
But the issue is you can't just hand them the money because then it goes back into rockets.
No, but what I would do is I would do it where you have American construction companies and other construction companies doing the rebuilding, but using the Iranian money to pay for it.
What is the hazard pay?
Yeah, exactly.
There, let's quickly go to Jay Denver. Good morning, Jay. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, morning.
Good morning. Great points. Have you been to the Cayman Islands?
Yeah, actually, honeymoon there.
Did you notice all those people getting off the ship with those briefcases with hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash? Because that's where the banking is. Did you notice that?
Yep.
Okay, so I've got the name. I've got the name for New Gaza, Cayman, Trump, whatever you want to do. But I call him Trump the Builder, because remember Bob the Builder? You know, our kids watch that. Yeah, fascinating. But this guy's playing 4-level chess against neophytes. I'm amazed. 2 weeks? And I think he's just calling them out like Muhammad Ali used to do and just take a poke at him to see if they know how to swing. But,
yesterday, Benjamin Netanyahu said about this, that Donald Trump often says stuff and then people's jaws drop and they're like, I can't believe he just said that. And then they come around to thinking about it. Well, maybe it's not such a bad idea.
Well, in the olden days, and we all know about that. I know, Jeff, and both of you are biblical people. That is the most gorgeous piece of ground in that area because of the weather and the nature of it. So we'll see where that goes. But to the gentleman that was doing the welding on the pipelines, thank you very much. We go up in aircraft that go 45,000 feet in the air, and I want the best A student, no D students doing aircraft or airplanes or anything else, because it's dangerous stuff. So I love the show.
Jay, really appreciate the call.
You.
Thanks so much. All right, coming up next, you're not going to want to miss our conversation with Jennifer Walker. She owns Wound Care Associates of Colorado, how she can help you and your family. Be sure to stick around. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. It's always fun on the Jeff and Bill Show when our sponsors are able to swing by, tell us about the great work they're doing, because unlike some other radio stations out there, we are not publicly funded.
No.
There's no grant. Although I was getting a lot of requests to look up how much Tigna's received over the years. That's just Channel 9.
That's Channel 9. That's,
At one point, $8.26 million from the Department of Defense.
Department of Defense? Yeah. The hell? Maybe the 9 News backyard is actually a missile silo. Because you drive by that building, you can't see the backyard. Where's the backyard? It's some sort of dimensional portal that Kathy Saley steps through.
So we rely upon our great sponsors and supporters, and Jennifer Walker with Wound Care Associates of Colorado is going to be joining us, talk about how they can help you and your family in your own home, which is fantastic. So we'll get to that in a second, but first, news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, thanks, guys. 46 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 63 today. Wow. Going to be a beautiful day. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Yes. 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 Yes.
DJT expected to sign an executive order barring transgender athletes from playing in women's sports. The order will be announced later today and will direct the DOJ and other federal agencies to interpret Title IX rules as banning transgender women and girls from participating in female sports. The order will require the immediate enforcement of these rules. The order, titled Keeping Men Out of Women's Sports, will also require single-sex locker rooms. The administration reportedly expects sports organizations like the NCAA to adjust their rules in order to comply.
This looks like a job for me, so everybody just follow me, because we need a little controversy, because it feels so empty without me.
And guess what? Democrats already moving to impeach DJT. Have fun, commies. 47 says he's not ruling out sending troops to Gaza and for the U.S. to take over the region.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
Hamas called Trump's remarks ridiculous and said he is risking igniting the region.
I'm glad they took time in between, torturing the hostages they have, the rockets that they're launching on innocent people, and then to put out a press release condemning his statements.
Right. Do they have letterhead, by the way?
I always go back, maybe because this is just burned into my memories, but when we invaded Iraq the first time, was it that PR guy that would come out and with Saddam Hussein's PR guy go, "We have defeated the United States," and meanwhile you could see like the lights shaking because they're getting bombed.
Yes. Oh, God.
I always thought when I hear Hamas like press releases, that's what I think.
Horrible. I think of the same thing. It's such a oxymoron, I guess.
We got to find out who that guy is. Whatever happened to him.
I remember that too. Man, those are crazy times. Arguments underway in federal court over pausing his executive order DJTs, looking to end birthright citizenship. A number of immigrant right advocacy groups, I love how they call it that, were among those who filed suit over the order. Attorneys general from 22 blue states are looking to stop the order, while 18 red states, AGs, are joining the suit to defend Trump's plan. A statement on the USAID website says that employees around the world will be placed on administrative leave on Friday.
It was U.S. aid that I fear much more than the CIA, because the U.S. aid is how CIA gets done.
USAID is clearly in the job of trying to bring about regime change. It has secret bank accounts, shell companies.
USAID gets $50 billion a year in U.S. taxpayer money. That's a larger overt fund than the CIA.
And Pocahontas is angry. The fraud is exposed. She came up with even more fairy tales on Tuesday.
Elon Musk wants the power to say that your grandpa, who frankly is a cranky old guy, and sometimes disses Elon on X, doesn't get his Social Security check on time. Elon Musk wants power to say to your mom's doctor, you're not doing it the way I would, so the doctor doesn't get paid.
What the hell is wrong with you people?
A suspect is still on the loose following a deadly shooting late Tuesday night near Columbus, Ohio. One person is dead and at least 5 others are injured following the shooting at the KDC 1 cosmetics warehouse in the town of New Albany. A new study suggests people's mental health and well-being are better earlier in the day. The study, published in the journal BMJ Mental Health, says that people felt happier and more satisfied with life in the morning. Researchers did acknowledge that they don't have conclusive evidence that a certain time of day affects mental health, but listening to Jeff and Billy really helps your mental health. I think it does. Pelicans at the Nuggets tonight at 7 o'clock. Canucks shut out the Avs 3-0. It's 43 in Highlands Ranch, 44 in Louisville, and it is 46 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
I am doing backflips over this. I am so excited.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The cat and mouse game we've been playing, with colder air from the north occasionally coming in and Pacific air pushing it out, continues today. The Pacific pushes out the cooler air. Temperatures all the way into the mid-60s today. Gusty and strong southwest winds, especially foothill. Lows tonight, lower 30s. A bit cooler but mild. 50s on Thursday and sunny. Sunny Friday. Temperatures go back up into the 60s. However, temperatures start to trend downward this weekend, and the downward trend continues into next week. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, joining us live in studios, Dr. Jennifer Walker. She's the owner of Wound Care Associates of Colorado. We're so glad to have her here. Thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me here this morning.
Now, Jennifer, you and I have known each other a little bit of time, but Wound Care Associates of Colorado, brand new advertiser here to the Jeff and Bill Show. And we've been talking with our audience about how they're two real delineators. And I want to get into a little bit of the backstory about why Wound Care Associates of Colorado is near and dear to your heart. But I want to outline, first of all, you can check them out, coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com. They are a game changer in the industry here in our state because of two things. The first one is they do it old school. They come to your house, and in the privacy and comfort of your home, they treat that wound that isn't going away. You and I have talked, our listeners, about how those tears in your tissue and your skin are the perfect avenue for germs and dirt and bacteria to get access to your bloodstream and your organs and all sorts of awful things that can happen. These people, these wonderful nurses and healthcare practitioners come to your house on your schedule. The other game changer that makes them different than everybody else, they're going to fix the problem. There are too many wound treatment facilities that just want to maintain the wound. They want to make sure that it doesn't get any worse. You wouldn't go to the doctor and he's like, wow, that leg looks really broken. Let's make sure it doesn't get any worse. Like, doc, how about we fix it? How about we do that one? That would really help me here. Or you show up with pneumonia and they're like, ooh, hope that cough doesn't get any worse. Good luck with that. No, that's not what you do. So this is why Wound Care Associates of Colorado is different. Check them out at coloradowound.com. We are lucky enough to have the owner and founder, Jennifer Walker, in studio with us. Thank you so much. And talk to the audience first about what happened in your own life with your uncle and how this really became this genesis of why you wanted to make sure that nobody else out there had to deal with what you went through. Can you just walk us through that, please?
Yeah, so my uncle Vernon actually had a cut that developed on his foot between his fourth and fifth toes. He had suffered with peripheral neuropathy for decades. He was putting on a slipper and it tore the skin. And with that skin tear, unfortunately, it developed an infection. The infection wasn't getting better. He did not have access to great wound care services. And as a result, he was hospitalized. And unfortunately, he died less than 3 weeks after the initial onset of his damaged tissue.
Oh, that is scary. So 3 weeks after the initial onset, you guys are making funeral plans inside the family. And this also included a preventative amputation. The medical professionals were trying to slow the infection, but it was too late. Walk us through that, about how when they eventually realized what was wrong, the steps they took didn't end up saving his life.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, when the infection gets so bad, it can actually develop a sepsis and infect the bone. Excuse me. And he did get an amputation. My goodness.
Take a moment. You're fine.
Yeah, it's okay.
She's going to drink a little water.
Yeah, she's going to have water, and just, because I don't want her to cough in the air. I'm just turn the microphone.
Exactly.
Okay, there. Microphone's back on.
Microphones. Thank you. And unfortunately, he did have the amputation as a result of a lot of his complicating health issues that he had. He had suffered with diabetes. He had issues with his kidneys, his heart. He also had a lot of peripheral vascular issues, which meant he wasn't getting appropriate blood flow to his extremities. And as a result, when they did the amputation, they had to do additional work to help make sure he had the best outcome, and he developed a clot in that leg. So it was just a problem after problem after problem. And unfortunately, my uncle had dealt with a lot of health issues over the course of his life. I think most of us thought he was going to bounce back. But for me, I saw the damage that wounds can cause. And I don't think even I realized just the significance of wounds and how they can really lead to that bad path, just like they did with my uncle. And our job and our goal is to prevent that from happening to any other families.
You're listening to Jennifer Walker, owner and founder of Wound Care Associates of Colorado, brand new advertiser here on the Jeff and Bill Show. And it's something that's personal to me. You've heard me talk about it on the air, how the same basic thing happened to my aunt. She had a chronic wound, a cut that was on her leg that she ignored for a while. Then when she eventually got treatment, they did it inside a hospital. That hospital exposed her to MRSA. It wasn't on purpose, but the hospital's where all the sick people are. And so in the process of them treating the wound, she got MRSA. That ended up with some infections. She spent some time in the hospital. Numerous times did she have to go in and spend time in the hospital. Eventually ended with some amputations. Now, that's not why she passed away later on, but she lost parts of her body because of the infection that started with a small cut. Now, Jennifer, many times we talk about, okay, you have these other comorbidities. You're dealing with diabetes. You're dealing with neuropathy. You're just getting old. We know that we heal slower as we get old. Talk to the audience about why you shouldn't ignore that small cut, because I'm sure, like with your uncle, it's a tiny cut on his toe. It didn't seem like a big deal given everything else that he was dealing with. He had so many other larger things. This little cut seemed like a minor inconvenience, but that minor inconvenience ended up being tragic. Talk to us about why ignoring that small cut and that wound can really lead you to some absolutely horrible conclusions.
Well, unfortunately, we just don't know how each person heals. Every person heals at a different rate. There's a lot of people that have other complicating health factors that will contribute to delayed healing. But at the end of the day, you have to address a wound very, very promptly because of the risk of infection. Anytime you have an open tissue, it means it's a portal for those infections to get in, and they can wreak havoc on your entire body, not just in that one specific region of the wound. So it can get deeper, it can go into the bone, it gets into the blood. It can wreak absolute havoc on your body. So addressing it promptly is essential.
Now, we've talked and we've heard from healthcare professionals about how, the mouth is kind of the gateway to your heart. That if you don't take care of the teeth, that's the infection that can easily spread down to the heart. We're just flipping it 180 degrees. We're talking about things like lower extremities. It could be something on your arm, but many times it'll happen on foot and legs. Now, talk to us about when you were setting up Wound Care Associates of Colorado. You decided to do it differently. You decided to break the mold. And really, it's a game changer inside of Colorado for two things. And I want you to outline why you put it together this way. One, that you're doing the treatment in home. And two, you found, and we'll talk about this, that many of the other treatment facilities were just trying to go, that's good enough for now. We're hoping it doesn't get any worse, but they weren't trying to get it better. Talk to us about what you found inside of the wound treatment facilities, and then why you decided to go with home care, and also, seems like the obvious choice, to actually fix and heal the wound versus what you saw other places doing.
So again, just like you said, Bill, our goal is to close the wound. If that's not the patient's goal or the other healthcare practitioners' goals, then those are really not a great candidate for services with our program. But the reason why we elected to perform these services in the patient's place of residence is so that we can provide the care on site and prevent the drama that goes with getting a patient to a wound care facility. Unfortunately, one of the reasons why people don't get better is because they can't follow the treatment recommendations. If you're having difficulty getting into a wheelchair, as an example, and then arranging transportation, and then getting to the wound care center, and then waiting to be seen at the wound care center, it's a really, really long process. If we can see the patient in the home, we're able to expedite that treatment and make sure that we're addressing it on the treatment plan that are recommended by the healthcare provider. The other huge benefit with our facility is that we have a nurse practitioner who is a wound certified nurse practitioner who goes on site and sees all the patients. The benefit of that is that we're able to write and change orders. We're able to work with all the different agencies to make sure that the patient is getting the best care possible to ultimately get the best outcome.
That's Jennifer Walker, owner and founder of Wound Care Associates of Colorado. We are talking about why it's important to not ignore that small cut, that diabetic ulcer, those pressure sores, bed sores, things like that. Now, one of the things that Jennifer just outlined is the fact that they come to your home. That is a game changer for so many families because many people have parents that may be aging in place or in another facility. But if they need this treatment, you're involved in getting them to that place. Many times your mom or dad's ride, and that means you're taking time out of your schedule. And also you have to help them get in, get out. And for me, and I've had experience with aunts and my grandmother as well, that's also an opportunity for another injury. I remember trying to get my grandmother into a doctor's appointment when it had just snowed the night before. I'm trying to get her out of the car, into the wheelchair, and then into the doctor's office all over the ice. If the doctor would have just been able to come to her home, none of that is a worry. I'm not concerned about her safety, and I'm also not taking time out of my day. So talk to us about some of the experiences that people with Colorado that have experienced Wound Care Associates of Colorado and the changes that visiting them in person in their home has made as far as them not only receiving the care that they need, but also being able to follow the prescribed treatment plan. How does that change the ability for the patient to care for themselves as well?
Well, it's a huge relief for them. This is not just stressful for family when a patient has to arrange transportation and go through bad weather to get to the wound care center. This is a very tough time for the patient themselves as well. But we've seen patients in our facility that have literally been dealing with wounds for years. We have a patient right now that's been dealing with a wound for over 2 years, and being able to make sure that the course of care that's been given is the best course of care. It's essential, making sure that we're looking to see, is there any infection present, making sure that it's safe to be administering the care that we're doing. And because of the testing that we're doing, it's actually changing our direction and how we're handling those cases. So our patients are thrilled that they don't have to be inconvenienced. It's already an inconvenience dealing with a wound, but to not have to inconvenience everybody else in the process is just a huge relief for them.
And wound care is one aspect. By the way, we're talking with Jennifer Walker, president, owner founder, Wound Care Associates of Colorado. You all do compression therapy, multi-layer compression, nutritional evaluation, and counseling. Tell us about those services.
Our goal is to heal the wound, but more importantly, prevent it from reopening. When you have a wound, unfortunately, when it does heal, it only heals at 70 to 80% of the strength of the tissue, which means it's going to be vulnerable to reopening again. So our goal is to address the reasons why it happened to begin with, so that we can make sure that it heals appropriately, but more importantly, that it doesn't reopen. So we discuss nutrition. We want to make sure that the patient's nutrition is good so that they're healing optimally.
Yeah, how does nutrition affect the healing of a wound?
A lot of
I've
patients,
never heard that before.
Yeah, a lot of patients, as they are aging, they're just not taking in enough protein. And if you're not taking in enough protein, unfortunately, your body won't have the components that it needs to heal.
Yeah, if you don't have the raw materials to break down, you can't then rebuild the house. And that's part of the reason why you're healing a little bit slower. You're listening to Jennifer Walker, owner and founder of Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Got a phone call off the air right now, Jennifer. The person was asking about the insurance that you take. Do you accept Medicare?
Yes, we are participating providers with Medicare. We accept some of the Medicare replacements. We are still awaiting credentialing with some of them. For those of you that don't understand, that is definitely a lengthy process. But Medicare, for sure, we are participating providers. If anybody has a question, certainly we can verify the benefits to make sure that there is coverage available.
And so reach out to them at coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com. Another question from a caller was they wanted you to outline what the service area is right now. And if it doesn't cover their area, are you looking at areas of expansion? So what is the current service area and where are you hoping to expand in the future?
We are Denver metro area. So we're going up as far as Fort Collins. We're going south as far as Colorado Springs. We're going out towards Evergreen and as far east to the border.
Oh, that's excellent, because that's gonna the caller that called in. That means that the person and his family is going to qualify.
You know,
That's
Bill,
fantastic.
this reminds me of the thing that of concierge medicine.
Yes,
that
that's
like
exactly
only
it.
the rich can get
Dude,
right now.
That was the thing. Okay, now here I'm gonna do that. Okay, Jennifer can't hear us right now. This is just between you and me, and the audience. That was one of the reasons when I started working with Wound Care Associates of Colorado that I was so excited that this is that personalized treatment. It's
Right.
going back. I mean, I've used it in the advertisements. It's going back to that old school adage of the doctor coming to you and
Yes.
treating you where you are. You're not treated like a number. We just got through with the stock show. We're not a cattle call. It's not what it
and
is.
You have to
This is
sit
personalized
in the
treatment.
doctor's office,
Yes.
and
And that always smells funny. And
And-
you know when you're sitting in the
yeah.
doctor's office, you're looking around going, who here is sick? Who am I not? Who's going to cough on me? It's always the issue. And when you have an open wound, that's a serious issue. Who else has been in that office? They go and they do disinfect the actual office after you leave, but they don't do that in the waiting area. They don't do that there. There are all sorts of other areas when you have an open wound that you can
Concierge
get.
quality, but
Yeah.
not the concierge price.
It's exactly what it is. It's absolutely incredible. So check them out at coloradowound.com. You're listening to Jennifer Walker, Wound Care Associates of Colorado, coloradowound.com. Now, Jennifer, when you were setting up Wound Care Associates of Colorado, when you were shopping around, you were looking at some of the other treatment facilities. Why did you personally decide that we needed to do this in home? What was the call? You talked about it with your uncle and not being able to get there, but what if some of the responses from the patients right now at Wound Care Associates of Colorado, what has been their response to just being able to contact you and have the healthcare professionals show up at their door on their schedule? I'm just looking at for some experiences that the patients have had.
Well, they're thrilled because, again, it's making it easier for them. A lot of these are patients that just cannot get out to the wound care centers on a consistent basis. So for them, it's a matter of really saving their life because they're not able to get the needed care at a wound care center. So the families are really happy with our service. Our providers are incredible. They are so caring and nurturing and smart and just very knowledgeable in what they're doing. And as a result, I think they are really developing such a great rapport with these families, not just the patients, but the families as well that are supporting these patients. You know, and for us too, Bill, the reason why I saw this as a huge need in most markets, truthfully, is because the wait to get into a lot of these wound care centers is pretty significant. Really? Definitely. You know, this is, you all know that, you know, I have offices in Virginia, the Virginia market.
I feel like if you have a wound, you want it taken care of like yesterday.
Yes. Oh, yeah, exactly.
There's a wait.
There's a wait. Yes. And in
Like
our
how
Virginia
long?
market, it's 6 to 8 weeks. So, you know, going back to my uncle, who unfortunately died within three
6 to 8
weeks. Yes.
We're just going to let this thing ooze.
It's just there's so many people that need these services, and it's not them standing there holding the trying to only deliver this to certain people. It's just that they are overwhelmed with the amount of people that need these services.
Oh, that's a good message, that you involve the family that is taking care from them and these people that can't get out and aren't as mobile. I did get a text message, someone asking whether or not you can go into some of the retirement communities because they have a parent that's there. The parent's no longer driving and, getting the shuttle to get you there and pick you up. It's nice if you're going shopping and they're taking a shopping trip, but they're not taking everybody and waiting sometimes for the doctor's office afterwards. It's just complicated and difficult. Can you get access to some of these retirement communities around Colorado?
Yes, the answer is definitely yes. We are working with many retirement communities, and depending on the level of services required, we definitely are able to help coordinate that.
Oh, that is fantastic. Now, you want to reach out to Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Check them out at coloradowound.com. coloradowound.com. As Jeff has outlined, this is that old school concierge style healthcare where they come to your home and in the privacy and comfort of your house, wherever you live. They are going to, within the service area, they're going to make sure that you get the treatment that you need. And most importantly, they are going to heal that wound. You heard the story from Jennifer about what happened to her uncle because the cut wasn't taken care of in an appropriate time frame, that he developed an infection and things went bad and eventually he passed away. My aunt spent numerous stretches in the hospital because of the MRSA that she contracted while they were dealing with another wound. I bring this up all the time. Part of the reason that she developed the MRSA was because when they were treating the wound, they weren't trying to fix it. They were just trying to make sure it didn't get any worse. And that's not, in my opinion only, that's not true medical care. If we're not trying to fix the problem and heal the patient, I question why we're involving medical facilities and progress in the first place. Now, Jennifer, one last question that I've got for you. I want to know that, can you walk me through the experience of a first-time patient? Let's say that I've made an appointment for mom, dad, maybe it's myself, and the nurse practitioner is going to show up who is wound care certified so they can change orders. So this is the full-blown professional that can take care of this. They set up, and I've been talking about it, a personalized treatment plan. Can you walk me through what that looks like and what the evaluation is so that our listeners know exactly what they're going to expect when they give you a call?
Well, the biggest thing is to find out, again, the severity of the wound, how deep the wound is, if it's infected or not. So a lot of times they will have to culture the wound to make sure that we know if there's any bacteria present. And if there is, we need to address that because the wound is definitely not going to heal if it's infected. And then they work to figure out what the best course of care is for the patient. For sometimes it's just using some of the different advanced bandages. For some people, it may involve using something called skin grafts or tissue subs, which are regenerative tissue that helps to promote accelerated healing of those wounds. So it really does depend. They have to do debridement on a lot of these patients. We use a product called Ultramist, which is touted to be a painless debridement, which is nice for the patients because if you have to use sharp debridement, it can be a little bit uncomfortable for the patient, but it's necessary to make sure that the tissue that is there is viable tissue, that it's going to be able to facilitate that healing. So, they're going to look at the wound and come up with the most comprehensive plan to address that.
And all in the private and comfort of your own home.
Yeah, Bill, I'm so grateful for people like Jennifer.
Yeah, me too.
I used to volunteer in a little animal hospital, and I was taking care of the animals, all that stuff. And then one day they're like, "Hey, come on into the surgery room," and I was like, "Sure."
Oh, and
then I got queasy and dizzy and almost fainted watching what was happening. And now I'm listening to her talk about regenerative skin and wounds and all that. Oh, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
I'm just not made to deal with this stuff, man. So glad to be like Jennifer Walker that can.
I know. I'm not wired that way either. And so again, we're talking with Jennifer Walker, owner, founder, Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Please reach out to them at coloradowound.com. They're absolutely amazing. Now, unfortunately, that's the end of our time that we've got right now. We need to move on, and we appreciate Jennifer for joining us in the studio. But what I want to do as we're closing, check them out at coloradowound.com, and I want you to save that inside your web browser. Put the little yellow star on it. Make sure you save it, because here's the deal. You may not need coloradowound.com right now. You may not need to reach out to Wound Care Associates of Colorado, but in the future, as both you age and your parents age, there's going to be an issue.
That's right.
We're going to have a cut. You're going to have something that you're going to have to deal with. So make sure you know where to go beforehand and that you reach out to the right healthcare professionals that are going to give you that custom concierge service in the privacy of you or your loved one's home with the compassionate care that you deserve, and plus with a full medical team that can take care of everything from Jump Street. They'll take care of it. They'll talk to you about insurance. They'll talk to you about the service area, and they'll do it on your time, your schedule, at your home. Nothing can be easier. Nothing can be better. And plus, they're going to fix it. You heard Jennifer talking about 6 to 8 weeks of a wait time. You and your family don't need to wait 6 to 8 weeks. Get that thing dealt with now. And don't just have them maintain the wound. They'll fix it. They're doing it right, and that's why we're proud to be associated with Wound Care Associates of Colorado. They're the best doing it in the state right now,
That's right.
and that's why we support them. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for spending time with us today. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
That was a lot of fun, Bill.
Yeah, thank you so
Grateful
much. That's
for
fun.
Jennifer Walker.
The thing for me that when I met her the first time, she's like, no, this happened in my family.
Yeah.
I lost my uncle because of this, and that's why I started this. I went, oh, you have my attention. This isn't about the check. This isn't about, making sure that, that she's going to go out and be able to buy a Bugatti. This is about her making sure that, our listeners don't go through the same loss and the same tragedy she did.
Yep.
There's no other higher reason to open a business than just to do it better than what you experienced. I love it.
Well, we are happy to support good people doing good things here in Colorado. One of them is Leeland Conway. He's with Rocky Mountain. He's the Rocky Mountain District Manager of Delta Defense, and they're hosting a rally, sending a strong message to those libs down at the Colorado State Capitol. From my cold, dead hands, will you pry our weapons away? And give us some insight on it is Leeland. Good morning, Leeland. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey guys, good to talk to you. Super excited. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to talk about this event. I work with Delta Defense. We manage the U.S. Concealed Carry Association, 860,000 members nationwide and thousands right here in Colorado. And strong supporters of the Second Amendment and our right to defend ourselves. And as I know you guys have heard and seen, at the Capitol, once again, they're trying to mount an effort to ban assault weapons. Of course, they don't call it that, right? It's just supposedly how these weapons operate. And but the reality is this bill would actually essentially end the ability to buy normal AR-15s and other types of weapons that the media likes to call assault weapons, but we just like to call platforms used for self-defense. So
right, and it
we're
goes
excited
even
to have a rally
further.
on
I mean,
Saturday.
they want to get rid of basically anything with a detachable magazine that's a semi-automatic gun. So your Glock, for instance, your 9mm Glock, which is like the most popular handgun out there, she gone.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. They claim that it won't ban that, right? But the reality is, if you look at the way the bill is written, right? So it specifically calls out gas-operated, rifles and pistols that are gas-operated, meaning "quote unquote" the scary assault weapons, right? That take a detachable magazine. The problem is there's contradictory language in the bill that kind of leaves it up to the Attorney General to determine what is and isn't covered, which means exactly what you said. It is possible that they could interpret certain types of common carry weapons, like your Glock, as you mentioned, or your SIG or your Smith & Wesson. It's possible they could be interpreted that way. That's the thing that's beyond the fact that we're talking about common weapons that thousands of Coloradans own, probably millions, really, that those would be outlawed. But also, as you said, it encroaches even on farther things like typical weapons that most people use for self-defense.
Talking to Leeland Conway, he's the Rocky Mountain District Manager for Delta Defense. They manage the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. So you guys are hosting a rally on Saturday. Tell us about it.
We are, and we're excited that you're going to speak for us as well. We're excited to have you there. This is going to be at the Gallery Range and Restaurant, which is over in Lakewood. It's a beautiful facility, great shooting range, great folks over there, and we really appreciate them letting us host it there. But we're bringing in, of course, the owner of the gallery. One of the owners is actually going to be speaking. You'll be speaking. I'll kind of helm the event, but we've also got Ian Escalante from the Rocky Mountain Gun Owners Association, former state senator Greg Brophy. We actually have a Democrat that's going to speak, the Democrat majority whip, who is against this bill. Nick Henriksen is actually going to come and speak as well, because he believes, he's from Pueblo, and he believes in that God-given right to self-defense, and he doesn't believe the government should be allowed to choose what weapons you choose for that. So we've got a great lineup of speakers. It's from 10:30 to noon on Saturday, this Saturday at the Gallery Range and Restaurant. It's going to be a blast. We're going to have a good time, good family-friendly atmosphere. The range is open, so if people want to shoot afterwards, there's actually a great restaurant there. So there's incredible food. So you can make a family day out of it. Come out and support the Second Amendment. Come out and find out more about this bill, how to stop this bill, put the pressure on these folks, and also have a great time at the same time.
I mean, if they are going to go after our Second Amendment rights, and look, I help lead the effort to try to protect the sanctity of life down there. We had the longest ever filibuster, went all the way, to the next day, really pressing. Look, if the Democrats have total control, you have to raise your voice. You can't just let them do this, because if they just ram this through, they're just going to continue. They're just going to come back next year with more and more bills like that. So you got to make your voices heard, and this is a great way to do it. Now, Leeland, is there a website you guys have where people can get more information if they need to?
I'm going to send you a link for registration. And then if you guys want to put that up there, you absolutely can. I don't have the link right in front of me, but I'll send that over to you as soon as we get done talking.
Perfect. I'll put that at x.com/Jeff Hunt. I'll put that up there.
Perfect.
Yeah, go ahead, Leland.
If I could say one more thing about this bill, and this highlights the absurdity of it. Okay. So I know you guys, shoot guns. We're all into the firearms. We all understand how an AR-15 works, right? That detachable magazine. I'm actually a certified firearms instructor, but I take classes all the time to kind of re-up my knowledge. And I just took an AR platform class just about a week ago. That, if you remember, just a couple of weeks ago when it was like super cold, it was like 9 degrees or snow on the ground, right? And one of the problems that I was having all day with the snow and the water and the gun getting dirty over time was I was having double feed and other types of malfunctions, right? The beauty of a detachable magazine is you can just hit that button, drop that magazine, and you can clear that weapon safely without having any problems and without putting anybody else in danger. When you have a non-detachable magazine, you take away the ability to safely operate that weapon, especially in the case of a malfunction. So not only are they infringing on our rights, guys, they're also creating an unsafe weapon operating environment. We're going to have more people killed or wounded by negligent discharges or accidental discharges because of this bill. It's absolutely the opposite of what they say to do.
Leland Conway, Rocky Mountain District Manager for Delta Defense, joining Jeff and Bill live. The one thing that I can't wrap my head around, Leland, and maybe you can help me, is why the Democrats seem to, and again, thankfully they're doing this, but why they seem to be launching such broad, open bills that after just 30 seconds or 60 seconds of examination fall apart based on their reasoning. All of the reasoning they give about gun safety and keeping people safe is disproven, one, by what you're saying, but two, the fact that they're talking about everything that has a detachable magazine. I know that in their heart, they are trying to focus on things like, mass shootings and some gun violence. But when you draw the bill up, just like they did last session and how they defined assault weapons, when you draw the bill so broadly, how can they possibly have any hope that it really is going to get over the finish line? Because in my opinion, for the average Colorado voter, it's not going to pass the sniff test, meaning it's not going to accomplish what they say their stated goals are, because they are shooting into such a wide target. They're sweeping everybody up and saying that all the guns are the problem when they're really just wanting to focus on a few. Why are they doing this? And thankfully they are.
Yeah. Only the thing is, I would argue that they are very well poised to pass this bill. As everything you just said is correct, but I think the root of it, when you say the why, is it kind of goes back. You guys remember in 2013, and at the time, she was in the state legislature. I think it was Diana Dept. Is that right? She was talking about the magazine limit, right? And mistakenly said that once you use a magazine, it goes in the trash. She thought they were disposable. I was up at the Capitol last week when they were doing the hearings on this bill. Unfortunately, I had to submit my testimony on the written side because I had radio duties that evening as well. But I listened to a lot of that testimony. And it was very clear that the people behind this bill don't understand exactly what it does. They don't understand exactly how these firearms operate, and they don't understand how sweeping this is. And I think the problem, because you bring up something really important, Bill, I think the problem is we have a lot of legislators who are basing their bills on emotion, and they don't actually understand the functions of the things that they're trying to ban. And I'm not trying to be mean, because I agree that we need to end violence, especially violence perpetrated with a gun, right? But there's ways to do that without infringing on people's rights. And if these folks would just give us a second to have a common sense conversation, we could explain the way we could go about doing that without having to infringe on Colorado's rights. So I think you make a great point, although I would say they're poised to pass it because I think there's enough legislators that aren't aware of what it is they're actually passing they might go ahead and vote no, which is why we have to raise our voice.
Leeland Conway, Rocky Mountain District Manager for Delta Defense, who helps work and support the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. This Saturday is a rally from 10:30 to 12 p.m. at Gallery Range and Restaurant. I'm looking it up on the website now. This place is beautiful. Oh, my goodness.
Gorgeous.
It's going to be a ton of fun. You're not going to want to miss it. I'll be there. Leland will be there. Some great Second Amendment patriots will be there. Again, this Saturday, 10:30 to noon, Gallery Range and Restaurant. Leland, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys. Yeah,
All
you
right.
guys are the best. Appreciate you very much.
You bet. I'll have details about registering for that at x.com/Jeff Hunt. All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Calling all Second Amendment patriots. Join me for a rally against Governor Jared Polis and the progressives at the state capitol's misguided Senate Bill 3, a dangerous and unconstitutional attack on your Second Amendment rights, this Saturday at the Gallery Restaurant in Lakewood and shooting range 10:30 to noon.
I think you and Leland are right. Yeah. This is awful. Yeah, you and Leland are right. Yeah, get out there and support this. This is crap.
Thanks for today. Tuning in to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.